down the middle. That's a beautiful catch by the receiver, Reese. That's going to be a 74-yard pitch and catch for the touchdown to put Longview on top late in the fourth quarter. That made it 21-20, but then McKinney has a chance coming back in the final moments, and it's going to be a 27-yard option for the junior kicker, Cole Dopper, as he makes it to give McKinney the 23-21 win over Longview, as McKinney holds on. As again, that's the junior kicker Cole Dopper with the field goal to give McKinney the win. And so that was a very exciting game. And again, the guys on the call, Greg Powers and Matt Stepp, calling the action last night. Here is their instant reaction from another very close finish.
Thanks, y'all. McKinney ISD Stadium tonight, we saw a banger, Matt Stepp, 23-21. McKinney knocked off Longview. It was a late field goal that gave the Lions the victory, but it was a strong defensive performance that really led them all night long. Why don't you kind of talk about your perceptions of the game?
Yeah, I thought McKinney's front seven really controlled the game. Longview busted a couple of big plays, but for the most part, McKinney's front seven contained Taylor Tatum and those Longview running backs and did a good job. And then McKinney on offense, opportunistic is the word. They took advantage of Longview mistakes every time, and were able to take those turnovers and capitalize them into touchdowns, and that was really the difference in the ball game, in my opinion.
Taylor Tatum was the offensive star for the Longview Lions. He had a long touchdown pass, 34 yards, and he had a long touchdown run, 64 yards. What do you think of Tatum's game?
Oh, he's as advertised. He's outstanding, and he showed his ability in the passing game as well. Showed the ability to throw the ball, looked good running routes, and was able to break big plays. And I thought Longview using him as a wildcat quarterback added a new wrinkle for the Lobos.
Set the table for us. What can we expect out of McKinney the rest of this season? Are they district contenders?
Absolutely. The Lions are for real. A big win over Longview here. McKinney's a team to watch in 5-6A, not for just the playoffs, but for a district championship.
For Greg Powers, you heard it from the high school insider, the man himself, Matt Stepp. Keep it locked right here on Texas Football Tonight.
Wow. All right. So two very big games last night, both coming down to the wire. Is that maybe a sign of things to come for maybe the games tonight?
Let's hopefully it's a good sign for things to come this season as well, right? I mean, when McKinney and Longview were announced as they were going to be a week one clash, I mean, if I wasn't here or preparing for this, I would have been there, trust me, because it was going to be a powerhouse matchup between not only two of the most powerful premier programs, especially McKinney under Marcus Shavers, definitely rising, bringing their profile up. But, I mean, if you're a casual fan, you're a college football fan, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of these players are going to be playing at the next level, right? You got Taylor Tatum at Longview, the #1 running back, our recruiting coordinator, Greg Powers, going to Oklahoma. Excuse me. McKinney was able to kind of help bottle him up a little bit. He finished with over 100 yards, but one of those was the 63-yard touchdown, I believe. The rest was kind of okay by his standard, right? Kind of averaged about 4 or 5 yards a carry. Bryant Jackson from McKinney, I believe, didn't finish the game, but he, I believe they said he's going to be back around district play, but he was still able to show a little bit. You're going to be able to watch him later this season. He's a USC commit as well. And you mentioned guys like God's Power and Nwanwihe, like, listen, that guy's a speedster, right? And he's able to kind of give them a different, McKinney, I mean, give them a different dynamic in terms of the offense. They're going to swap quarterbacks. They did last night, right? I'm trying to remember the name. I believe it was Nwanwihe and Jeremiah Daoud. And as you're looking right here, we're going to do one of our live look-ins feature that we're going to have.
First of the year, live
First of the year, Lake Belton and Rouse. Right now, Lake Belton up 20-0 on Rouse. I believe Rouse just got on the board, actually, so... Or it looks like they're about to get on the board, rather.
Yeah, it looks like they're pretty close here.
Look at this. So, by the way, how about this, right? Live cut-in, right? If you're, I'm gonna give a little subscription pitch here.
There we go.
Obviously, what you're watching now from us is free, right? But if you are a Rouse or a Lake Belton fan and you want to watch that game, you can scroll over, right? You can click on a link. You can pick that big red subscribe button. And you can watch this game, right? You can watch this game live if you get sick of hearing us talk about it. But if you want to watch this game in full, you can just go and subscribe, become a Dave Campbell's Texas Football subscriber, and you can watch this game, watch it back tomorrow, right? It's going to be on demand. But a little bit, one more thing on this game. Jeremiah Daoud is going to be the other quarterback for McKinney. Him and God's Power are kind of optioning back and forth. They provide different things for the offense. And so McKinney's going to be able to have those options and be able to kind of provide different elements of the game as Coach Savers sees fit.
Yeah. Again, right there you saw it was a 20-10 lead for Lake Belton. But we're talking about those quarterbacks in that game last night. Well, we got our very own Greg Powers giving his thoughts on some of the top quarterbacks and where they are in the recruiting process. Here is Greg Powers. Oh, we apologize for some of those technical difficulties there. We'll get back to that a little bit later. But again, some very interesting quarterbacks there in the recruiting process. We'll touch on that a little bit later. But we'll come back in just a couple of moments. As you saw, we got a live look in just a couple of seconds ago. On the other side of the break, we'll be diving in as the games are starting to get into full swing. That's coming up on the other side of the break. You're watching Dave Campbell's Texas Football Tonight.
There's only one state in the nation with 13 Division I FBS programs, and there's only one podcast that talks about every single one of them. Introducing the Dave Campbell's Republic of Football podcast, the most complete coverage of the Lone Star State. Join host Ishmael Johnson, Carter Yates, and Mallory Hartley live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. for the biggest news and weekly previews on all Texas FBS programs. Can't catch every college football game on Saturdays? We've got you covered with recap episodes Sunday mornings with senior writer Mike Craven checking in. Subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts, including Spotify and Apple. Strap in with your host Ishmael Johnson, producer Mallory Hartley, senior writer Mike Craven, and college writer Carter Yates for a ride that'll last from now throughout the season.
Need your daily football fix? Look no further than Texas Football Today, the daily live show from the people that bring you Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Every weekday at noon, Greg Tepper and Ashley Pickle bring you the latest news, deep dive analysis, insightful interviews with big-name guests, and more. And if you ever miss an episode, you can subscribe to the Texas Football Today podcast to keep up with all the fun. Don't miss Texas Football Today every weekday at noon at texasfootball.com, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and subscribe to Texas Football Today wherever you get your podcasts. Nobody covers Texas high school football like Tep and Step, the premium high school football podcast from Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Dig deep into the sport in every corner of the state with high school football insider Matt Stepp and managing editor Greg Tepper, with game previews, unique insights, and bold predictions. Get Tep and Step by becoming a Dave Campbell's Texas Football subscriber at texasfootball.com/subscribe.
We might not be good at many things, but there is one thing that we crushed, and that's naming a stinking podcast. WTF. Yes, it's exactly what you're thinking. Women talking football. Oh, you thought it meant something else? You might be right. Tune in every Thursday at 2 p.m. as me, Ashley Pickle, and everyone's favorite Mal pal, Mallory Hartley, bring you in-depth analysis of every region of the Lone Star State, talk ball with reporters across Texas, get the real scoop from coaches' wives, and all the other nonsense that comes along with the two of us being allowed to talk into a microphone. Join the party Thursdays at 2 o'clock on the Dave Campbell's Texas Football YouTube page.
welcome back into the NTTV studios again. Dave Campbell's Texas Football Tonight in partnership with the University of North Texas. We saw a cut-in the last block, and let's just get right into it. We've got a handful of games going on throughout the state, and I think we got a couple of games that we want to pull up right now. But again, now we're starting to get into it where these games are starting to get into progress, and we're starting to see some exciting plays. But Ish, again, I mean, we talked about it at the start of the show, but just a phenomenal slate opening weekend games, and we got some big ones here, and looks like we're starting to get some big plays from a couple of these games.
Yeah, we'll check it. We'll see if we're patching to our guy Gavin Moritz at the Atascocita Dickinson game in a little bit. We saw they had some action going on there. Anna and Decatur, I mentioned that one, right? If you were talking about this,
for the Eagles.
There's, as you're seeing right now, we get a
Now
little
here
three-box
comes
action,
Williams.
right? I mean, you get the Dickinson game on the top
Touchdown,
left,
his first of
Gilmer
the
and
season.
Tyler Chapel Hill, a little East
Handoff
Texas
here.
matchup on
Gives
the
it to
top
Shelby
right,
on the left
and then I believe
side.
that is Anna and Decatur on the bottom there. Again, look, this is what it's going to be, right? It's going to be some stuff from us, and as we patch in here fully, Tyler Chapel Hill taking on Gilmer. This was a game that I believe was pretty lopsided last year. Tyler Chapel Hill, yes, they lost to Gilmer 51-27 last year, and they're going to look to get this back, right? This is a very special team for Coach Jeff Reardon, right? You see guys like Ricky Stewart and Demetrius Brisbane. We'll talk more about them throughout the night, I'm pretty sure. But as you're seeing, Chapel Hill right now up on Gilmer 13-7. Yeah, I mean, Gilmer's looking to punch it in right here.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and stick with this right now because, yeah, you see Gilmer threatening to perhaps tie and maybe even take the lead as they're inside the 15.
Tennyson in the backfield with Sims.
Now it's going to be an option over to that far side, trying to get to that edge. A good job by the Chapel Hill defense to get there in time, and maybe a gain of maybe just a couple.
The entire defense, linebackers and defensive line, once again, well coached, pushing them.
It's
and
almost like they
stretching them.
just shifted to the outside.
And he really good because the offensive line, when you're doing it, they try to get on the outside. But if you watch that defensive line, they do a great job of not letting them. They take that step back and they just maneuver and they know where they're going. A great, well-coached team so far from what I can see on that defensive front.
So Tennyson, second down and about 6 on the play. Takes a snap. Hands off up the middle, untouched into the end zone. That's going to be Alex Sims for the touchdown.
And that was just a big hold. That looked like it was an assignment issue there on the defensive side. They just didn't. They gapped it wrong.
Yeah.
And that just happened.
Just a run right up the middle, and it looked easy. The offensive line did a good job of establishing first contact, and that was kind of a wide open gap there for the halfback. And right here, Gilmer with a chance to take the lead with the extra point, but that right there is just an easy run right down the middle.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, this was going to be one of my biggest questions with Gilmer this season. They lost one of their biggest playmakers in Rohan Llewellyn last year. What does the offense look like with Caden Tennyson taking another step forward, with guys like Will Henderson, right, now being more featured? These are both 1,000-yard contributors. Will Henderson was a 1,000-yard rusher last year. Caden Tennyson had almost 1,500 yards through the air. So this is one of my biggest questions for Gilmer. This is a team that Alan Metzel is definitely I mean, the standards are always high in Gilmer, but when you go 11-1, you make it to a regional semifinal. Even losing a guy like Rohan Llewellyn, who's at TCU now, it's kind of a next man up mentality when you get to these type of programs.
As they're setting up for the extra point right now. And and we're going to go to Gavin Moritz, who's on the call right now.
When coaches are willing to do that, you know, it just sets the example for the rest of the team that we're better than you are up front, and we're going to mash it down your throat.
1st and 10 from the Dickinson 23. Brown evades the rush again. Zion Brown will tuck and run. Look at Zion Brown shifty down to the 15 for a good gain.
Really was a nice play, flushed out of the pocket. Again, we're talking about he made a nice play, but I tell you what, that was a nice play by Sanchez out there at safety again, one-on-one out in the open field with Zion Brown, and he brings him to the ground.
As he prevents Zion Brown from going any further than about the 15-yard line, it'll be 2nd and 2 here coming up for the Eagles as we're inside of 3.5 minutes.
I'll tell you what, I bet there's not 10 teams in the state of Texas from 6A all the way down to Class A or anything else that has a better defensive backfield than what Dickinson has.
Weak pistol set here for the Atascocita Eagles on 2nd and 2. And flags will fly at the snap of the football. Is going to be a false start.
Coach Nelson, for years after years, he's always hung his hat on defense. He's been a defensive-minded coach, and very, very well coached. Both of these teams are running the odd front. By what I mean by odd front, 3 defensive linemen just about every snap, sometimes a 3-4 set, depending on what kind of offensive formation they're showing, or sometimes a 3-3 stack-looking set with 5 defensive backs. Both of these teams very, very well coached defensively.
So the Eagles go down from a 2nd and 2 at the 15 to a 2nd and 7 at the 20 following the false start. And here they hand it off to Torrey Blaylock, stretching near side. Nowhere to run this time for the 4-star running back. Maybe a gain of the yard to the 19.
Number 6. Yeah, really nice play by Kanye Armstrong coming up from his outside linebacker position and making a stop. Again, you've got a 3rd and 5 situation right here. A little over 2.5 minutes left in the half. What do you think they're going to do right here, Gavin? Do you see a run-pass option, or you just turn around and hand the ball to Blaylock and think you got 2 downs to go get the first down?
I think if you're Zion Brown here, I think you only throw it if you have a sure completion, right? You want to keep the clock going in case you don't get the first down. 3rd and 6 here from the 19. Brown, tuck and run. Zion Brown makes a man miss, and he's down to the 18. Only a gain of the yard that time, but the clock will keep moving.
They made that look like pass all the way, but that was an intended quarterback draw. Good call, but I tell you what, an even better play again. You got to give Dickinson defense credit for making some plays and making them in a tough situation. It's 4th and 6. I think he's going to think about it a little bit. Coach Stump's going to call a timeout. No. Coach Nelson's the one that called the timeout from Dickinson. They're going to take a look at it and figure out if they're going to try to go for it and bring the field goal unit out there. Personally, going into halftime, I want to get points on the board and make it a 2-score lead. You don't want to leave it to chance and not make the first down, and then you go in. Dickinson's got all the momentum going in at halftime. I want to be up by 2 scores at halftime.
A minute 55 on the clock. Another timeout here brought to you by the city of Katy. And Coach, 4th and 5 from the 18. This is likely within the range one would think for Parker Cushing, but Coach Craig Stump is one of the more aggressive, game managers in the state in terms of the head coach, right? What do you do here?
Well, without a doubt, the first thing I do as a coach, and this is something we had built into our system for years and years when I was coaching, first of all, I'm a hard counter. I may or may not run that play, but I'm going to see if I can get the cheap 5 yards.
All right, so again, you see Atascocita going back there in the red zone. That's a good game. And last year, that was really one-sided. Atascocita got the 37-0 win. Also in the season opener last year against Dickinson, as again, we go back to the triple box. I tell you what, I know we're not even an hour into the show, but that's my favorite feature so far, is getting the multiple games up there. That's really cool. But again, as we're looking at some of these games, the offenses, they're getting off to quick starts.
Sure. As we see here, we're patching into Decatur and Anna. I mean, I was at a Decatur game a couple years ago, and I need to make it out to Anna, honestly. But Anna's coming off their best season in school history. I believe a state semifinals run, state regional finals run, and Decatur is coming off of a state semifinal run. And both these teams, they have a lot of replacing to do, right? A lot of the biggest thing with Anna, obviously, when you lose an FBS quarterback and running back in Evan Bullock and Jambers Dunbar, there's going to be some questions, right? If you're coming off the best season in school history, this next class has a lot to live up to. But a lot of these guys do come back, right? Jacob Emmers at wide receiver, over 1,200 yards last season. But also, you look at Decatur, coming off Steve Huff's first year. He came over from College Station, I believe. Leads them to a state semifinal, right? They were started 0-3 last year, with one of those losses being to Anna, but got going. I believe they finished the year 9-0 before they ended up losing to eventual state champion China Spring. This team right here, I'll tell you this right now. Nate Palmer, learn the name, right? You will be hearing his name. He had over 2,200 yards rushing last season. He's a DCTF 3-star, according to our recruiting guy, Greg Powers. He's going to be somebody that this Decatur team's, and as I'm getting literally right now as we're talking, Chapel Hill's about to score against Gilmer right in the red zone.
How about this game, huh?
I mean, this one, we were just talking about Gilmer scoring a couple minutes ago. So as you're seeing here, this one's going back and forth. Chapel Hill already probably a lot better than the start that they had last year, which again, I believe was 51. It was a double-digit loss, right? And it wasn't a good start from Chapel Hill. As you're seeing right now, up the middle, that is, I believe, Ricky Stewart. Number 0, excuse me, no, that was
Mayfield?
Javen Mayfield. Yes, sorry. Javen Mayfield, a wide receiver, senior wideout. He puts up Chapel Hill. They go up again after Gilmer scores. And yeah, this one, I mean, honestly, if I have my money, if I wasn't sitting here right now, I'd probably have my eyes tuned on this one.
Yeah.
We're about to be not even through the first quarter, and it's about to be 20 or 21, depending on this extra point, 13.
Well, so here we go. So we're talking about, seeing some gaudy numbers already. How about that, Lake Belton?
I was about to say, we'll have to patch into that one soon.
Yeah, so again, we're going to try and keep up with all the action. It's going to be tough because already we're seeing a lot of high-flying action in the first quarter or so in all of these games. But real quick, before we go to the break, anything surprising you so far as we just peruse over those scores?
I like Lake Belton kind of showing out, right? They have the number one offensive player in the state, Micah Hudson, and I'm going to take a guess in saying that they're using it if they're at 27-10, right? So that's one of the ones that's standing out to me so far.
Yeah, we'll be taking a closer look at Micah Hudson in just a little bit. That will be coming up later in the show. But again, we'll take another break. On the other side, we'll keep you updated. Again, a lot of stuff happening. We're in the midst of it now. You're watching Dave Campbell's Texas Football Tonight.
There's only one state in the nation with 13 Division I FBS programs, and there's only one podcast that talks about every single one of them. Introducing the Dave Campbell's Republic of Football podcast, the most complete coverage of the Lone Star State. Join host Ishmael Johnson, Carter Yates, and Mallory Hartley live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. for the biggest news and weekly previews on all Texas FBS programs. Can't catch every college football game on Saturdays? We've got you covered with recap episodes Sunday mornings with senior writer Mike Craven checking in. Subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts, including Spotify and Apple. Strap in with your host Ishmael Johnson, producer Mallory Hartley, senior writer Mike Craven, and college writer Carter Yates for a ride that'll last from now throughout the season.
Need your daily football fix? Look no further than Texas Football Today, the daily live show from the people that bring you Dave Campbell's Texas football. Every weekday at noon, Greg Tepper and Ashley Pickle bring you the latest news, deep dive analysis, insightful interviews with big name guests, and more. And if you ever miss an episode, you can subscribe to the Texas Football Today podcast to keep up with all the fun. Don't miss Texas Football Today every weekday at noon at texasfootball.com, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and subscribe to Texas Football Today wherever you get your podcasts. Nobody covers Texas high school football like Tep and Step, the premium high school football podcast from Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Dig deep into the sport in every corner of the state with high school football insider Matt Stepp and managing editor Greg Tepper, with game previews, unique insights, and bold predictions. Get Tep and Step by becoming a Dave Campbell's Texas Football subscriber at texasfootball.com/subscribe.
We might not be good at many things, but there is one thing that we crushed, and that's naming a stinking podcast. WTF. Yes, it's exactly what you're thinking. Women talking football. Oh, you thought it meant something else? You might be right. Tune in every Thursday at 2 p.m. as me, Ashley Pickle, and everyone's favorite Mal pal, Mallory Hartley, bring you in-depth analysis of every region of the Lone Star State, talk ball with reporters across Texas, get the real scoop from coaches' wives, and all the other nonsense that comes along with the two of us being allowed to talk into a microphone. Join the party Thursdays at 2 o'clock on the Dave Campbell's Texas Football YouTube page.
Welcome back inside the NTTV studios. Again, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Tonight in partnership with the University of North Texas. Nick Laupius with you here alongside Ish Johnson right with me here on the desk. And I tell you what, we're already having fun. We're getting some triple boxes going. We're seeing a lot of offense early on. And one of our highlighted games that is we're starting to see some progress there. It's Shadow Creek and Manville. And we have Chase Snyder on the call. We'll be hearing from him a little bit later on. But that's a very enticing matchup here in week one.
Yeah, I mentioned at the start of the show, Kirk Martin left Manville for a while. He led them to the 2017 state title game. One of the best games you'll ever see, right? They lost to Highland Park on they were stopped literally at the 1. Jalen Preston stopped literally at the 1-yard line. He went to Syracuse after that, as you see, we're punching in right now. He went to Syracuse for a couple years, was an assistant, came back to Texas, but he was a Colleyville Heritage, and then decided, you know what? I'm going to go back home, right? And so he helps go back to Manville. Again, you'll hear more about his story. Aaron Hargan sat down with him at coaching school and was able to talk to him about the decision to come back, but he came back to a kind of a different landscape. Yeah. Alvin was kind of run, and kind of that Houston area was kind of run by Manville when Kirk Martin was there. Brad Butler, one of his assistants, who was there since 2006, I believe when Manville opened. He took over the job at Shadow Creek, led them to back-to-back state championship appearances, and I believe they won in 2019. And so he was kind of able to do what his mentor kind of couldn't at Manville, right? That was the thing that Kirk Martin left with, unfortunately, was without the state title. And so now, teacher versus student kind of a game going on. Man kind of trying to reestablish themselves as the go-to school, because for those of you, for getting into some technical things here, Shadow Creek's high school pulls from the middle school that Manville used to pull from in Alvin. So they're literally kids who grew up together, right? Yeah. A lot of the Shadow Creek players probably grew up rooting for Manville, right, before they had to go to Shadow Creek. So there is a lot to be interested in this one. We'll get into prospects and all that stuff later as well. I mean, if you're talking about Houston area prospects, you can't get better. More often than not, you can't get better than Manville and Shadow Creek, unless you're talking about, obviously, the apex probably of the sport, which is probably like teams like North Shore, right? Yeah. They're right there in that conversation if you're talking about longevity and just programs in general kind of representing the best of the best.
Yeah, and that Shadow Creek offense, I mean, they were on a whole nother level last year. They averaged almost 42 points per game. So we'll see if they can keep up and maybe try something similar this year. But as you saw, they had 14 points there in the second quarter. But again, I tell you what, this is a lot of fun. We were just in break talking about this is really cool. We got the triple boxes going up as we go back to Shadow Creek and Manville. But again, this is a Shadow Creek team that last year 11-1. The only loss came to Summer Creek there in the postseason. But Brad Butler in his now 6th year with the Sharks, he's got a really good formula, I guess you can say, as you take a look at the success they've had there with the Sharks recently.
Yep. No, 100%. I mean, you can't. As we're seeing, we tap in a little bit here to the Gilmer-Chapel Hill score.
Is that Gilmer already going down the field again?
Look like they're going back already. I can't believe this. Look, listen. I can only imagine what it's like being there, and like as a former community and newspaper writer, like having to like chart down literally every single play and trying to figure out how I'm going to record stats. That's one of those games where I'll do the math later. I just need to write down everything that's happening. But as you see, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're just jumping around right now. We'll take you behind the scenes eventually to show you how kind of crazy we're just kind of flying right now. We have a script that probably is going to be thrown out the window sometime
I think it's
soon.
already gone,
It's probably already gone. It's all good, though, because that's the point, right? Yeah. We're not a structured show because we're dictated by what's happening. Yeah. And that's kind of what, to me, the beauty of this program is. So Lake Belton, I hinted at that score a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Lake Belton,
27 points already.
Yeah, 27 points already. And listen, the name is already, if you're a college football fan, if you're a fan of high school, you know the name Micah Hudson, right? 5-star players, you see us tapping in right here. And look at this. See, so Micah Hudson right here. He is a dynamic player. As you're seeing, these are highlights, right? By the way, this isn't actually happening right now. But 5-star, #1 overall offensive player in the state, according to Greg Powers and basically any other recruiting site. This kid is going to have his pick of the litter when it comes to programs, right? He's going to have, I believe, Texas very much in the picture. He's going to be, of course, Texas is in the picture as well. A&M's in the picture. Look at his skill set, right? Running after the catch, attacking the ball, prototypical size. This is a new program at Lake Belton, and he's helping put them on the map, him and on the defensive side, his teammate Selman Bridges. As we're seeing again, him just the way he's able to get open, attack the ball. Again, I'll use the word prototypical every single time because that's what he is. He is the wide receiver that you imagine as you see him going up to attack the ball there last year against a really good Red Oak team. He's a big reason why you're going to know the name Lake Belton this year, despite them being just now in their 2nd year of varsity play.
Yeah, of course, putting up gaudy numbers in football, but I mean, he is so dynamic. You talk about prototypical multi-sport athlete, including basketball, track star, even some experience as a goaltender in soccer. So he does a little bit of everything, but I mean, you look at his career stats there at Lake Belton, I mean, that is almost jaw-dropping.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is, every time, like Bill, I believe, is also working in a new quarterback, and every time you have somebody like that to throw to, right? And by the way, those rushing stats are real, right? He steps in at running back when they need him to, just because if you have an athlete like that,
Why
you're gonna
not?
be able, I was about to say, you're going to be able to use him. Just like I mentioned his teammate on the other side of the ball, Selman Bridges, another highly touted recruit that use him in many different ways. So that was Micah Hudson. You'll be seeing his name way more this season, but let's patch in a little bit to Atascocita and Dickinson. As we mentioned earlier, this is a game that Gavin Moritz is on the call. 20-7 Atascocita right now.
Yeah, so that one you see 20-7 Atascocita with the lead as they go to halftime. You mentioned Gavin Moritz on the call. We'll take a quick break, and on the other side of that break, we'll tune in and listen and talk with Gavin, who is on the call right there. So stick with us. This is exciting. We're getting into it now. It feels like football now. We got all this chaos, organized chaos, you can call, in motion. We'll be right back here on Texas Football Tonight.
There's only one state in the nation with 13 Division I FBS programs, and there's only one podcast that talks about every single one of them. Introducing the Dave Campbell's Republic of Football podcast, the most complete coverage of the Lone Star State. Join host Ishmael Johnson, Carter Yates, and Mallory Hartley live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. for the biggest news and weekly previews on all Texas FBS programs. Can't catch every college football game on Saturdays? We've got you covered with recap episodes Sunday mornings with senior writer Mike Craven checking in. Subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts, including Spotify and Apple. Strap in with your host Ishmael Johnson, producer Mallory Hartley, senior writer Mike Craven, and college writer Carter Yates for a ride that'll last from now throughout the season.
Need your daily football fix? Look no further than Texas Football Today, the daily live show from the people that bring you Dave Campbell's Texas football. Every weekday at noon, Greg Tepper and Ashley Pickle bring you the latest news, deep dive analysis, insightful interviews with big name guests, and more. And if you ever miss an episode, you can subscribe to the Texas Football Today podcast to keep up with all the fun. Don't miss Texas Football Today every weekday at noon at texasfootball.com, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and subscribe to Texas Football Today wherever you get your podcasts. Nobody covers Texas high school football like Tep and Step, the premium high school football podcast from Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Dig deep into the sport in every corner of the state with high school football insider Matt Stepp and managing editor Greg Tepper, with game previews, unique insights, and bold predictions. Get Tep and Step by becoming a Dave Campbell's Texas Football subscriber at texasfootball.com/subscribe.
We might not be good at many things, but there is one thing that we crushed, and that's naming a stinking podcast. WTF. Yes, it's exactly what you're thinking. Women talking football. Oh, you thought it meant something else? You might be right. Tune in every Thursday at 2 p.m. as me, Ashley Pickle, and everyone's favorite Mal pal, Mallory Hartley, bring you in-depth analysis of every region of the Lone Star State, talk ball with reporters across Texas, get the real scoop from coaches' wives, and all the other nonsense that comes along with the two of us being allowed to talk into a microphone. Join the party Thursdays at 2 o'clock on the Dave Campbell's Texas Football YouTube page.
All right, welcome back inside Dave Campbell's Texas Football Tonight. Again, we're in the full swing of things. We already got a couple of games going into halftime. Again, thank you so much for joining us on this very first episode of this new endeavor. It's kind of the central hub, bringing you all the action from Texas football. And we're going to join Gavin Moritz, who's on the call there, Atascocita versus Dickinson. Hi, Gavin. First of all, I mean, we're back in the swing of things. How does it feel just being back in the press box at the football field?
I'll tell you guys, it feels great to be back here in the 2023 season. I had a game last night. I'm now in my first Friday night game of the year. Atascocita's up at the half, guys, over Dickinson 20-7.
All right, and just getting right into it, this was a pretty one-sided game last season, but as you saw, Dickinson was able to get something on the board and kind of hold off Atascocita early there in the first half. What have you seen so far as Dickinson trying to get a big win this season and try and avenge the lopsided loss last year?
Guys, this was a 37-0 game last year on Thursday night in week 1. This year, Atascocita's playing well. It's 20-7. Dickinson, though, pulled something out of the bag of tricks. Little halfback toss to John Solomon. He pulled up through it for a 40-yard touchdown to Jeremiah Scobie. That got him on the board, made it 14-7 before later Torrey Blaylock punched it in for the second time in this first half with a 1-yard touchdown run.
Gavin, when I was looking at this Atascocita team, I've been really interested in seeing how guys like Zion Brown and Torrey Blaylock kind of step up into being, one of the best playmakers in the state, which is I think they have the potential to be. What have you seen from them so far in this game?
Well, Zion Brown has looked composed. He's liked to run the ball a little bit more than we've typically seen the last couple of years out of him. Torrey Blaylock's running hard. And they have a new transfer in from Klein Forest. That's Jelani Watkins, this track star at wide receiver. He's looked explosive on the edge. They tried to get it to him down the field a couple of times. They had connected with him once or twice, but I think Jelani Watkins is going to be a guy to watch this year for the Eagles.
All right, Gavin, I know you were able to kind of chat with the head coach there at the Atascocita. Just kind of take us through and talk about your conversation with head coach Craig Stump.
Guys, Craig Stump's been the head coach at Atascocita since 2012, before my time, but his son, the offensive coordinator now, Joshua Stump, in his second season as the OC, and he's calling the plays, believe it or not. And it's a family dynamic that runs deep in Atascocita, and we were glad to be able to talk with both Craig and Joshua Stump and check it out.
You don't want somebody thinking, or is he going to be okay with this? So I didn't want any of that. That's really hard to do, anybody that's called plays for 20 years.
For many families, the bond between father and son is a crucial one built perhaps on playing catch in the yard or going to ball games together. But for Craig and Joshua Stump, their bond goes a little bit deeper than that. For the Atascocita head coach and offensive coordinator, their bond extends past the football field and onto the sidelines.
Just looking back on it, it's not a lot, it's not something a lot of people get to do, spend that much time with their dad. So, growing up, just going back to that, my dad was, always gone with recruiting and college football. It's, extremely demanding. And so growing up, my mom was always like, whatever you do, you can be anything, but don't be a football coach. And I think subliminally that just kind of, stuck in the back of the mind. So your mom says don't do something and you're going to do it. So.
With Craig being the offensive coordinator for so many years, handing the reins over to Josh came with both a bit of a learning curve and a laugh.
During the series, like after it's over with, hey, what about this, what about that? But during the series, so we were playing Dickinson and we were moving the ball and we were getting down there and I accidentally had left my mic down. Typically you put it up, can't talk, but I'd accidentally left it down and, I'm like, just run it again. We got him, just hand the ball off, and he called a play and a pass play, and Zion threw a touchdown. And when he called it, my mic was down, and I went, "Oh God!" And he's like, "What? And about that time, he snapped the ball and threw a touchdown. I just said, "Nothing. Good call."
My first game, we were playing Dickinson, and I think it was like 2nd and 1 or something, and I called a play. And we've always, he's been used to calling plays for 17 years, and he didn't really agree with it, the play call, he wouldn't realize that like his mic was on, so I would call the play and then he would like comment on it, which he wasn't used to, and I'm like, run the play where we ended up scoring a touchdown. And so I made sure he heard about that one.
For Joshua, his favorite memory coaching with his dad dates all the way back to his first season in 2016.
And I remember one Coach Sam Brooks, he's at Splendora now, but he walked up to me and Coach Tidwell, it was both our first year, and he was like, y'all need to enjoy this. This doesn't happen. This is not normal, not guys coach 40 years and don't ever make it to a state semifinal or a state championship or whatever it may be. And I was like, okay, this is your first year, or this is my first year. I mean, whatever, you never know. We'll be back here next year, of course, but like that was super special, getting to do that with them, making it to the state semifinal game. It was like, it was unbelievable.
The reality that coaching together won't last forever Every day spent together, both at home and on the sideline, is special for the Stump family.
Well, I think just you see them every day. I think that's the big thing, right? Like, my other son's in Dallas. See them a couple times a year, or maybe they'll come in the spring or summer once, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. But with him, see him every day, and I think that's just you can't replace that.
I can't imagine not doing it. I think about my dad and his dad, or my grandfather. He was a coach, and my dad got to spend a lot of time with his dad. And it's just super special to me. I think about, it's not going to be forever. This has been, they've been doing this for 8 years. He's not going to work forever. So, I'm just thinking about how cool it is that we get to do this. I don't know how long it'll be for, but I'm really enjoying this time right now with them. So it's definitely strengthened our bond.
Well, again, thank you so much, Gavin, for joining us and getting that great conversation in. And, again, that's just one of the many things that makes Texas high school football just so much fun to follow, is something like that. You have that father-son bond where I'm sure, dads are always coaching their kids, but to actually be with the same team and be the head coach and then have your son come through the program, that's something really special.
Yeah, it's got to be gratifying for them to see, you'd be experienced being coached by your dad, right? Yep. But then admiring that, right? And saying, I eventually want to be in his shoes too. And so having your dad be able to give you an on-ramp into that career, and it's got to be pretty gratifying for the father as well to be like, oh man, he actually wants to be what I am. He did look up to me as an inspiration. So I agree, definitely something really cool. That's kind of makes the sport unique.
Yeah, so again, Tascasita has the lead at halftime over the Dickinson Gators. We're going to take a quick break, but on the other side, we got some crazy games not the spotlight games, but they're getting some crazy stuff going throughout the state of Texas. Week 1, what could be better? We'll have some highlights coming up on the other side of the break. Again, this is Dave Campbell's Texas Football Tonight.
There's only one state in the nation with 13 Division I FBS programs, and there's only one podcast that talks about every single one of them. Introducing the Dave Campbell's Republic of Football podcast, the most complete coverage of the Lone Star State. Join host Ishmael Johnson, Carter Yates, and Mallory Hartley live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. for the biggest news and weekly previews on all Texas FBS programs. Can't catch every college football game on Saturdays? We've got you covered with recap episodes Sunday mornings with senior writer Mike Craven checking in. Subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts, including Spotify and Apple. Strap in with your host Ishmael Johnson, producer Mallory Hartley, senior writer Mike Craven, and college writer Carter Yates for a ride that'll last from now throughout the season.
Need your daily football fix? Look no further than Texas Football Today, the daily live show from the people that bring you Dave Campbell's Texas football. Every weekday at noon, Greg Tepper and Ashley Pickle bring you the latest news, deep dive analysis, insightful interviews with big name guests, and more. And if you ever miss an episode, you can subscribe to the Texas Football Today podcast to keep up with all the fun. Don't miss Texas Football Today every weekday at noon at texasfootball.com, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and subscribe to Texas Football Today wherever you get your podcasts. Nobody covers Texas high school football like Tep and Step, the premium high school football podcast from Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Dig deep into the sport in every corner of the state with high school football insider Matt Stepp and managing editor Greg Tepper, with game previews, unique insights, and bold predictions. Get Tep and Step by becoming a Dave Campbell's Texas Football subscriber at texasfootball.com/subscribe.
We might not be good at many things, but there is one thing that we crushed, and that's naming a stinking podcast. WTF. Yes, it's exactly what you're thinking. Women talking football. Oh, you thought it meant something else? You might be right. Tune in every Thursday at 2 p.m. as me, Ashley Pickle, and everyone's favorite Mal pal, Mallory Hartley, bring you in-depth analysis of every region of the Lone Star State, talk ball with reporters across Texas, get the real scoop from coaches' wives, and all the other nonsense that comes along with the two of us being allowed to talk into a microphone. Join the party Thursdays at 2 o'clock on the Dave Campbell's Texas Football YouTube page.
All right, let's check out at Marauder Stadium. We got Highland Park versus Flower Mound Marcus. Let's get to the highlights for what we got so far. Got Bryce Lakowski here for Highland Park, catching a wide open pass from Warren Peck to collect the first score of the year for Highland Park. As you see, Highland Park in their patented spread offense. Wide open. Bryce Lakowski doesn't get easier than that for Warren Peck. He can basically walk in the end zone at that point. Let's skip ahead right now. Highland Park is up and looking to expand the lead. Keller Holmes getting the handoff here from Warren Peck. And he makes a move, gets to the end zone right up at the middle. First rushing touchdown of the year for the Scots. 14-0 now for Highland Park. But Flower Mound Marcus, they are able to answer. That's going to be Isaiah Klipicki going 71 yards, as you're seeing right here, lining up. It's about to be a 71 yards. I mean, the anticipation kills me sometimes. Right here, able to blow past, get off a defender and blow past. That's a great block, by the way. Leading block to spring him free for a huge Flower Mound gain. They did not score on there, but that was able to get, they were able to score a couple plays later, I should say, reward the big man for his great run there. And I mean, this game right here, look, Flower Mound Marcus is able to get a good opening season test, as you're seeing right here. Scoring. There you go. Give it to the man again. See, he gets you all the way down there. You might as well reward him for the touchdown. But no, those two teams right there, you're not going to find a better heavyweight matchup, I should say, in the DFW area. Highland Park, of course, one of the most storied programs. People across the country know about that program as well. And then Flower Mound Marcus, of course, getting down early, but able to kind of respond to in the face of adversity. I think it's a pretty good sign for them.
Yeah, you knew that Flower Mound wasn't going to go down 14-0 earlier and just kind of roll over. So, of course, you expect a big response like that in 71 yards, and then you hand it right back to him again for the touchdown. So that's a pretty good start to that game. Like you said, two heavyweights, and this is not the only big game that is going on right now. Another game that was not one of our spotlighted games, but we're going to go into it right now. We've got Duncanville and South Oak Cliff. As you see, it's a 12-0 lead for Duncanville, as we'll cut live into that.
Seeing him do on Saturday
for the next few years.
Texas, I don't think second down, nowhere to go. Buried by Washington in the 41. You see Jamie on council for the first time tonight. Buried by Washington. Mason Williams loses his hat. Now bring on Will Kerrigan for the first time. Third down and 9 now for South Oak Cliff. At their own 43 with 5:25 to go in the first. Third down and 9 now for South Oak Cliff. At their own 43 with 5:25 to go in the first.
You're already down two scores. Let Dunk something on the board here in any drive. You're already down two scores.
Big H-back in there. Carlos Burr. They sent him to the left. Little, gonna roll. Pressure coming. Gets away. Good throw by Little. And the tackle made at the 38. Closing pressure.
All right, so you see Duncanville off to an early 12-0 lead, but it looks like South Oak Cliff, their offense starting to hum a little bit as they get into the Duncanville side of things. And I mean, this is a couple of big names like we just talked about the other one, Flower Mound Marcus and Highland Park. There's a couple of more blue bloods in the state of Texas. And you see South Oak Cliff starting to move along into Duncanville territory.
Yeah, these are two defending state champions, I should say, or reigning state champions, I should say. And this game last year kind of frustrated South Oak Cliff a little bit because Duncanville, of course, we found out both teams went on to win the state title, but Duncanville kind of flexed their muscles a little bit, right? This is a lot of coaches who know each other, they're familiar with each other, they're right down the road from each other, the programs are, or not down the road, but they're in the same region of Dallas, I should say. And these two teams, I mean, it's a lot of, they're very, how should I say, personality driven, right? They love to let their players' personality show, so you see some trash talk back and forth. Both coaching staffs love to do that. I personally love it. I think this is one of the better rivalries in the state, or kind of brewing rivalries in the state, I should say. And as you see, I mean, South Oak Cliff, like I mentioned last year, they got frustrated in this game because their offense really didn't get going until late in the season, right? They really struggled at quarterback when Kevin Henry Jennings, now off to SMU. Last year was their first year without him, and they kind of had to work some guys at quarterback, right? Figuring out what exactly the type of offense they wanted to run. They want a running quarterback. They wanted somebody who can throw, somebody who maybe wasn't the most polished, but he gives you better upside. This year, it's already looking a little better. Last year, it looked like it was kind of an overmatch because it was before South Oak Cliff kind of got their footing. But if you're looking at two premier programs in the state, I mentioned this with Manville and Shadow Creek, I mean that double for this game, right? You just look at all the players that South Oak Cliff put into college this past year in FBS programs, right? Duncanville, they have the #1 player in the state in Colin Simmons. I mean, end of story, right? He just committed to Texas. He's going to be making plays all over the field. DeCorian Moore at wide receiver, he's going to be the #1 player, I believe, next year, at least on offense. There's just talent littered on the field for both of these teams. A great representation of DFW South Dallas as well. As you see, we're kind of patching into Arlington Martin and Lake Travis, another game that was played last year. I believe Arlington Martin won that game last year. This one is still scoreless. Well into the game in the third quarter here.
Wow.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. By the way, I do want to say, I do love that they're playing at, are they at the Hilltop, I believe, SMU?
That is, yeah.
South Oak Cliff and Duncanville. So getting a nice little showcase game for two Dallas programs getting to play right in the smack dab in the middle.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's a future ACC stadium right there. I don't know. Never know.
A little ACC-ish. Flip that A and that C around that they got right now at the AAC, and all of a sudden we got the new conference.
Before going too much into Arlington Martin, Lake Travis, and going back to South Oak Cliff and all that, let's get into Arlington Martin and Lake Travis right there, as we see Lake Travis threatening a little bit, and we'll cut right into the call over there with our friends down in Austin.
This is the kind of start that I was looking for them to have. I mean, they've got a veteran offensive line with the exception of a new center, and as I said, that's a very important part of what's going on in the offensive line. Should be able to run this ball for right here for 2 yards, third down.
4 minutes gone by third quarter, still no score. As Nico Hamilton on the left hip of Leon gets the handoff, and he is drilled immediately. Guess who's there? Brandon Smith.
Brandon Smith, 2 unblocked linebackers awaited you right there.
Yeah, also Brandon Munoz. So the two Brandons, Munoz and Smith, I would suggest getting away from the Brandons.
Get a body on him at least. Don't let him come clean.
Okay, this is a big play here. 4th and 2 from the 28-yard line. Cavaliers, the 27-yard line. They need the 25. Leon's in the shotgun. Play clock is down to 9. Galbraith is to the right, and the handoff goes to Nico, who's hit. He's not going to get there. And the Martin defense holds. So another drive ends without points for the Cavaliers.
But once again, you had 2 guys unblocked in the hole. They didn't get to that linebacker level. These 2 linebackers are really good, Mark, as you said. If you don't block them, they're going to fill the gap. They're not running, and they're not shying away from contact, one-on-one contact. And if you got 2 of them that are unblocked, they're going to make that play.
That seemed like a little slow developing play there.
From straight behind the quarterback almost?
Yeah, just a little handoff going right. But, part of it is reacting to the defense that's out there. Okay, here's Biddle, and Biddle's going to run. And he runs right into the secondary and still gets a couple of yards, about 3 after contact, Buck, just like you like it.
There it is. Good run by Biddle, by their quarterback.
Yeah, he's across the 35 to the 36-yard line. As Martin starting from their own 27 now after the turnover on downs.
So both teams looks like they want to establish the run in the second half. I think they're starting to feel like, Mark, if you get 10 points in this game, you could possibly win it.
If you get 3 points, you could win it. Right now, if you get a safety, Buck, you can win. Or 1 extra point.
You and I have never been in a game like this before. I've never been in a game for sure at this stadium like this.
And soccer games are played here, too.
That's
right?
true.
All right, 2nd and a yard. And false start on the offense.
Just self-destruction.
6:30 to go third quarter.
All right, so again, a shout out to our friends down in Austin covering that game. Let's get in some more highlights as, again, they're coming fast and furious here. Let's go Crosby Cougars and CE King Panthers. That one underway. We'll take you to the first quarter. This is a punt gone wrong for Crosby as the snap goes over the punter's head. Ends up being a safety, and CE King, the Panthers, get out to a 2-0 lead on the miscue. Then next drive, it's going to be a big run for CE King, the quarterback, taking it all the way. That's Darius Clark James, the senior, with a big run. They would get a touchdown the next play, make it 9-0 CE King. And then right here, how about the Crosby wide receiver? A big 64-yard run and catch for the touchdown to get Crosby on the board. That made it 9-7 into the second quarter. CE King, here's a big handoff up the middle, and there we go. We see the explosiveness all the way to the house. 16-7 CE King. They would tack on some more. Is this another handoff up the middle, another long run, and that would make it 30-7 CE King all over Crosby in that second quarter. And then we'll go again. This time a huge play on the defensive side of things, as that one is a big catch, or sorry, I beg your pardon, a big grab rather by the wide receiver, but that's a 30-7 King lead right now over the Crosby Cougars. But again, Ish, I mean, we're getting into this now, and that's a pretty good start right there, I would say, for a CE King with a 30-7 lead.
Yeah, CE King is one of those programs that's been for a while. They've been on the cusp, right? They've been always in that conversation around the Atascocitas, around the North Shores, but haven't been able to really punch their way through. I thought that was going to happen a couple years ago. I mean, what a start this would be for them if they were able to kind of make a statement win like this, get off the year with a great win, a great convincing win. Let's just hope they keep it going, because again, they've always been on the cusp, right? That next tier, kind of below the traditional state contenders. I think they have the capability to do it. It's just kind of like seeing it in practice now.
Yeah, and I do want to give, so one of those runs, one of those touchdown runs for CE King, that was Deani Sims, who had the big touchdown run that made it 30-7 for CE King. And again, they're in control with a 30-7 lead right now over Crosby.
All right, let's go and check out some of Wimberley action. I mean, I'm a Central Texan. You're familiar with the Texans. They're taking on Canyon Lake right now. We're going to get into the first quarter. Wimberley quarterback Cody Stover is going to take it in for the first touchdown of the year, do it himself. He had a breakout year last season, and he has high expectations. Let's take it. They go up 7-0 right here, as you're seeing Wimberley celebrate their, I believe, junior quarterback now, kind of getting it done. Let's take it back. Look at this, deja vu, right back in the red zone. Instantly, he's going to do it again. Why not? Up the middle again, untouched this time. Stover again. Look, this is going to be a guy that you're going to get to know his name, right? He burst onto the scene last year. Wimberley made a state championship game. They have those expectations down there in Central Texas. And look, no, this is not me just flipping the camera that you just saw. This is, again, Stover. This time he's going to run. He's going to throw. No, just kidding. He's actually going to run again, get to the pylon, beat the defense. And look, Wimberley's up 24-0 right now in the second quarter. Let's get one more, though. We're not quite done yet. Stover is going to throw this one to Nolan Waida. Jump ball. Great catch there as Wimberley goes up. I believe that was Stover's fourth touchdown, Wimberley's fourth touchdown as well. And they have a commanding lead over Canyon Lake. Look, this is a program under Doug Warren that's consistently made things happen, right? Last year they had kind of a speed bump when their quarterback that they thought was going to be their quarterback, Cash McCollum, transfers in the offseason to China Spring. Cody Stover was thrown into the fire, right? It's like, hey, sophomore, go play games, right? It's not always going to be, it's not always going to go well. And it didn't at first, right? Admittedly, he started a little slow. Then he kind of made his way through. You kind of realized the special talent that he was. Wimberley's in the state championship game. All of us, oh my goodness, look at this. This is crazy. But I will say, he's going to be somebody that you're going to know, right? Whether it's this year, whether it's next year, he's going to be somebody that's going to make an impression, because Wimberley's one of those programs, as I grew up in Central Texas, who, I just touched my mic, I apologize to the people that may have blown their ears out. Wimberley's going to be one of those teams that is always on the tip of your tongue if you're watching high school football, especially in Central Texas. So keep an eye on that name, Cody Stover and Doug Warren's Texans.
All right, so a couple of those games that we just saw, you know, some lopsided games that surprised you at all as we are here in the opening week?
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, it's a little, some teams are getting the rust off, some teams are flexing their muscle. It's kind of going back and forth. So we'll see.
All right, well, the highlights, they just keep on rolling in. We'll take some more look-arounds as we come up on the other side of the break. Stay with us. You're watching Dave Campbell's Texas Football Tonight.
There's only one state in the nation with 13 Division I FBS programs, and there's only one podcast that talks about every single one of them. Introducing the Dave Campbell's Republic of Football podcast, the most complete coverage of the Lone Star State. Join host Ishmael Johnson, Carter Yates, and Mallory Hartley live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. for the biggest news and weekly previews on all Texas FBS programs. Can't catch every college football game on Saturdays? We've got you covered with recap episodes Sunday mornings with senior writer Mike Craven checking in. Subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts, including Spotify and Apple. Strap in with your host Ishmael Johnson, producer Mallory Hartley, senior writer Mike Craven, and college writer Carter Yates for a ride that'll last from now throughout the season.
Need your daily football fix? Look no further than Texas Football Today, the daily live show from the people that bring you Dave Campbell's Texas football. Every weekday at noon, Greg Tepper and Ashley Pickle bring you the latest news, deep dive analysis, insightful interviews with big name guests, and more. And if you ever miss an episode, you can subscribe to the Texas Football Today podcast to keep up with all the fun. Don't miss Texas Football Today every weekday at noon at texasfootball.com, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and subscribe to Texas Football Today wherever you get your podcasts. Nobody covers Texas high school football like Tep and Step, the premium high school football podcast from Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Dig deep into the sport in every corner of the state with high school football insider Matt Stepp and managing editor Greg Tepper, with game previews, unique insights, and bold predictions. Get Tep and Step by becoming a Dave Campbell's Texas Football subscriber at texasfootball.com/subscribe.
We might not be good at many things, but there is one thing that we crushed, and that's naming a stinking podcast. WTF. Yes, it's exactly what you're thinking. Women talking football. Oh, you thought it meant something else? You might be right. Tune in every Thursday at 2 p.m. as me, Ashley Pickle, and everyone's favorite Mal pal, Mallory Hartley, bring you in-depth analysis of every region of the Lone Star State, talk ball with reporters across Texas, get the real scoop from coaches' wives, and all the other nonsense that comes along with the two of us being allowed to talk into a microphone. Join the party Thursdays at 2 o'clock on the Dave Campbell's Texas Football YouTube page.
All right, welcome back inside the NTTV studios here in Denton, Texas. Dave Campbell's Texas Football Tonight. Nick Laupius and Ish Johnson with you here on the desk. But we've got a whole lot of talent scattered out throughout the state of Texas. We're going to join one of them now out in Anna, Texas. It's the Decatur Eagles and the Anna Coyotes. And we
Coyotes.
The Coyotes.
I'm going to correct you on that
There
one.
we go. The Coyotes. Thank
Somebody
you.
else will.
All right, there we go. We got the Coyotes out there and the Decatur Eagles. We got James Trentley out there on the call for Texan Live. James, thank you so much for joining us right now during halftime. And again, I asked Gavin this earlier, but just for you, how good does it feel to be back there in the press box and calling football for another season of Texas high school football?
Can I say it again? Texas high school football is so back, guys. I think this is honestly the best time to be around, and this is where you want to be. I mean, a game like this with Anna and Decatur, two teams that took tough losses last year against China Spring and really are in redemption mode. Anna, the Cinderella story last year and everything they have to do. Decatur coming off the state semifinal loss. It just feels great to be back. I won't get too much into it. I'll let you guys ask a few questions, but still, it just feels amazing to be back here.
Kind of take us through it. Anything surprising so far in that first half between Decatur and Anna?
Well, I guess the most surprising thing when you think about it, I mean, you got two quarterbacks who you really don't know a whole lot about. Now let's talk about Decatur first. Jed Ross isn't a guy that I think anybody really expected to be the starting quarterback for Decatur coming in. We thought Landon Feltz was going to be a shoo-in for that role whenever they had to replace who they had to replace from last year in Escobar, but still, now coming into it, Ross doesn't look like he's kind of figured it out just yet. Now when it comes to Anna, you look at everything that Anna has, Zy Williams looks like the real deal. He's got 2 touchdowns, 2 long touchdowns, and it's really been impressive what he's been able to do. You know, at Decatur, it's going to be the Nate Palmer show, and that's kind of what we've been able to see so far. But for Anna, it's really been a story of what Zy Williams and Sean Steens is able to do.
Take up too much of your time. No, you've got to recover between the halves, but what are you kind of expecting there in the second half, and maybe any big impact players to make an impact there in the second half of the game?
If you had to pick one impact player for each team, Decatur, it's going to have to be Nate Palmer. If you look at the first half and what Nate Palmer was able to do, he was the offense. He was the difference maker, but it came down to the defense being able to stuff him. So if he could turn things around, get past defense, that's going to be their story. For Anna, we need to turn into the Zy Williams show. Zyandre Williams, a sophomore QB, really needs to make a presence and make people remember this name here tonight in week 1 of Texas high school football.
All right, James, thank you again so much for joining us. Go get some food, get a little bit of water, and get ready for that second half. Because, again, that's one of our spotlighted games, Decatur and Anna. What a big matchup. What a big get for Texan Live. That was kind of a late addition, but, again, that just joins what already was a pretty stacked slate of our spotlighted games for this week 1 show.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, if you're not familiar with James yet, he's one of our new, he's not, I don't want to say new, he was there with us last year, but he kind of joined on late in the year. This is his first year doing football for us, I should specify. One of the best we have. One of the best we have, one of the most knowledgeable we have. I called a basketball game with him, I believe, in the playoffs, and he's just a joy to hear. So, again, I'm going to plug the subscription again, texasfootball.com/subscribe to go listen to Decatur Anna in full with James on the call. You're not gonna regret it at all. In fact, all of these games we're literally running through. Again, I'll do another massive plug for the whole thing, right? We're patching in here. Each of these games have their own feeds. Each of these games have their own full feeds that you can subscribe and hear all in one. So and on demand after they're all done. So we're free. We're glad you're here. But if you want more of each of these games, definitely go check it out.
All right, so again, a big shout out to James as he gets ready for the second half. Let's take get the highlights rolling again. We got Clear Falls versus Pearland coming up. So take a look at some of those highlights. Here we go. We got Landon Vessel, little QB draw. Why not? Right down the middle. He got chopped down, but kept with it, is able to get over the line there into the end zone for a big touchdown. As that was a big score there for Landon Vessel. And then we got another one. Vessel again, it's another touchdown run from the opponent's 20 as he's able to get the 20-yard score right there as a big touchdown as Clear Falls starting to extend their lead. 27-21 in the final couple of minutes of the second quarter. And this time it's going to be Patrick Bridges going over to that far side, able to get just a bit of separation. That's a beautiful touch pass right there for the touchdown as Clear Falls, again, able to extend their lead. So, again, we got a couple of highlights rolling in. Real quick, a big shout out to those students behind the scenes. They're getting those highlights going as quick as possible, getting us all the information. And you know what? We got some more highlights coming up on the other side of the break as, again, we're right in the middle of it now as the high school football season is underway, and we're bringing you all the action right here on Texas Football Tonight.
There's only one state in the nation with 13 Division I FBS programs, and there's only one podcast that talks about every single one of them. Introducing the Dave Campbell's Republic of Football podcast, the most complete coverage of the Lone Star State. Join host Ishmael Johnson, Carter Yates, and Mallory Hartley live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. for the biggest news and weekly previews on all Texas FBS programs. Can't catch every college football game on Saturdays? We've got you covered with recap episodes Sunday mornings with senior writer Mike Craven checking in. Subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts, including Spotify and Apple. Strap in with your host Ishmael Johnson, producer Mallory Hartley, senior writer Mike Craven, and college writer Carter Yates for a ride that'll last from now throughout the season.
Need your daily football fix? Look no further than Texas Football Today, the daily live show from the people that bring you Dave Campbell's Texas football. Every weekday at noon, Greg Tepper and Ashley Pickle bring you the latest news, deep dive analysis, insightful interviews with big name guests, and more. And if you ever miss an episode, you can subscribe to the Texas Football Today podcast to keep up with all the fun. Don't miss Texas Football Today every weekday at noon at texasfootball.com, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and subscribe to Texas Football Today wherever you get your podcasts. Nobody covers Texas high school football like Tep and Step, the premium high school football podcast from Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Dig deep into the sport in every corner of the state with high school football insider Matt Stepp and managing editor Greg Tepper, with game previews, unique insights, and bold predictions. Get Tep and Step by becoming a Dave Campbell's Texas Football subscriber at texasfootball.com/subscribe.
We might not be good at many things, but there is one thing that we crushed, and that's naming a stinking podcast. WTF. Yes, it's exactly what you're thinking. Women talking football. Oh, you thought it meant something else? You might be right. Tune in every Thursday at 2 p.m. as me, Ashley Pickle, and everyone's favorite Mal pal, Mallory Hartley, bring you in-depth analysis of every region of the Lone Star State, talk ball with reporters across Texas, get the real scoop from coaches' wives, and all the other nonsense that comes along with the two of us being allowed to talk into a microphone. Join the party Thursdays at 2 o'clock on the Dave Campbell's Texas Football YouTube page.
All right. Well, again, thanks for joining us. We're right in the thick of things now as we are underway in the 2023 Texas high school football season. Nick Laupius, Ish Johnson with you here. And again, I know I said it at the end of the last segment, but I can't shout out these students enough. Everyone in the control room, out here in the studio, of course, those editors upstairs, phenomenal job. They're being thrown into the fire week one of classes. And they're crushing it.
I was about to say, like, these highlights you're seeing, by the way, of the games that are on Texan Live, those are being cut in real time by students here in North Texas. So, again, I didn't graduate from North Texas, but I'm seeing, like, for the first time, like, it's fine. But I'm seeing a lot of the product being put on display here and what they're teaching them. I mean, insane stuff, so big credit.
Yeah, so again, phenomenal stuff from all the students behind the scenes. And again, we got those spotlight games, great action, great talent, Texan Live. And we'll toss it out there in Gilmer, Texas. We got another one of those broadcasters. We got Brett Sweeney with us. All right, Brett, well, just kind of take us through. Again, I'm going to ask everyone that I'm talking to tonight, just how does it feel? How good does it feel to be back in the football stadium calling football for this new season?
Man, it's awesome. The atmosphere here in Gilmer is electric. This is a huge game. Top 5 teams in the state. The bands are playing now behind us. It's just a great time of the season. I've got my man Keith Whitman here doing color tonight. Keith, that first half, what do you think about it?
Man, it was a fantastic first half. A lot of offense on both sides of the ball. Chapel Hill showing a lot of run this year, which we haven't seen in the past. But Gilmer coming back and not giving up. It's what you want to see in a first game of the season and a good kind of precursor to what you're going to see for the rest of the season from both teams. It's an awesome way to start the season.
That's fantastic. And just kind of take us through, some of the things that maybe have caught you by surprise so far in that first half. And just take us through what the first half has been like out there.
A lot of offense. And a lot of penalties, kind of a bit in Chapel Hill this first half. Had a player ejected early, a lot of penalties that cost them plays. But honestly, After the last year's 7 turnover outing in game 1 against Gilmer, it's been a lot cleaner game for them, and the score shows it. I mean, they're two pretty evenly matched teams. It's been back and forth. Chapel Hill at one point had a 2-touchdown lead. Gilmer ran the kickoff back. Then they forced a fumble by Stewart. Answered again, tied the game up. The only thing that separated us tonight is the PATs. We have 2 PATs missed from Gilmer and 1 from Chapel Hill, and that's the difference in a 34-33 halftime score.
And I do believe that, you know, both sides, like you said, is they're playing heads-up football. Yeah, the penalties have hurt a little bit, but Chapel Hill's turned around. They haven't let it hurt them. And they're keeping the ball. The 7 turnovers from last year, they're not repeating that this year. So they're really putting their heads into the game, getting their emotions, getting into it. But it is the first game of the season. These teams kind of don't like each other. So it makes for a more interesting football game as it goes on as well.
I know this is a big year for Coach Reardon. This was kind of the window that he saw with this juniors going to a senior class. How would you kind of judge? Obviously, a lot of pressures on Brisbane and Ricky Stewart, but how would you judge them so far? And do they look kind of like the guys that are now the leaders as opposed to the freshmen / sophomores that are kind of playing up to the varsity level?
Yeah, so far they've played a pretty clean game. You've had the fumble by Stewart, but it wasn't. I mean, it was poked away by a great play by Gilmer. It wasn't just a silly fumble mistake. The mistakes have been limited by those two. The offenses look great, and honestly, between the two teams, I think it's just going to be one of those games where either it's going to come down to the last team that has the ball, or the team that makes the most mistakes in the second half is going to take this one, because both teams are pretty evenly matched. Overall.
And I will have to say, you're talking about Reardon, but the difference that I see is, especially with the team, it's spread out between more than just Brisbane and Stewart. Coach Reardon is utilizing more players. He's bringing in, he's resting Stewart a lot more than he has in the past. He's not pushing the pass more for Brisbane. And he's not running Brisbane as much. You know, last year Brisbane was one of the main characters along with Stewart for running the ball. So this year he's utilizing more players. He's moving the ball from left to right instead of just pounding one part of the line. So there's more aspects to the game for Chapel Hill and more players that really a defense has to watch than just those two.
All right, Brett Sweeney, Keith Whitman, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the second half. Sounds like it's going to be quite the doozy there in the second half. Thanks again for joining us. All right, well, man, there's some high-scoring games so far tonight.
The community newspaper writer in me is like, just like my heart's palpitating looking at all these high scores. Because somebody has to take those stats, by the way.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, we're not ESPN in terms of like high school football. So somebody's literally just sitting there writing all about all that. So, but let's dive a little bit into Chapel Hill versus Gilmer. I mentioned last year it was 51-27 Gilmer, 34-33 Chapel Hill right now at the half. And I mentioned 2 names, Demetrius Brisbane and Ricky Stewart. And I want to talk about one in particular, Ricky Stewart. Both these guys are committed to SMU, by the way. I do want to make SMU had a great coup in recruiting both those guys. But Ricky Stewart and Demetrius Brisbane have both been playing since they were freshmen, right? Ricky Stewart right now, 3,000 yards. He has not played his junior season yet, folks. He is right now a 2025 graduate. He's going to be, if he stays committed, playing at SMU with Demetrius Brisbane. These two guys are very special, and this is the reason, these next 2 years are going to be the reason why Jeff Reardon made this move when he decided to take over the program at Tyler Chapel Hill, because they are state caliber players. They're FBS level players. They are going to be top tier they are top tier in terms of talent. And this is the window, right? Yep. They're not underclassmen anymore. When they were freshmen, I believe they made the regional final or the state semifinal. I can't quite remember. But they were like right on the doorstep as freshmen. Last year, they had kind of a letdown loss in the playoffs. This year, it's state or bust basically now for this program. So I'm very excited to see these two programs, or see these two players for this program.
Well, so again, that's one of our spotlight games, and looks like so far it's living up to the hype. That's a 1-point lead for Chapel Hill at the half. Coming up on the other side of the break, it's a homecoming for one of the coaches, a very big homecoming here in week number 1. We'll take a closer look at that on the other side of the break. Again, stick with us. You're watching week number 1 of Dave Campbell's Texas Football Tonight.
There's only one state in the nation with 13 Division I FBS programs, and there's only one podcast that talks about every single one of them. Introducing the Dave Campbell's Republic of Football podcast, the most complete coverage of the Lone Star State. Join host Ishmael Johnson, Carter Yates, and Mallory Hartley live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. for the biggest news and weekly previews on all Texas FBS programs. Can't catch every college football game on Saturdays? We've got you covered with recap episodes Sunday mornings with senior writer Mike Craven checking in. Subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts, including Spotify and Apple. Strap in with your host Ishmael Johnson, producer Mallory Hartley, senior writer Mike Craven, and college writer Carter Yates for a ride that'll last from now throughout the season.
Need your daily football fix? Look no further than Texas Football Today, the daily live show from the people that bring you Dave Campbell's Texas football. Every weekday at noon, Greg Tepper and Ashley Pickle bring you the latest news, deep dive analysis, insightful interviews with big name guests, and more. And if you ever miss an episode, you can subscribe to the Texas Football Today podcast to keep up with all the fun. Don't miss Texas Football Today every weekday at noon at texasfootball.com, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and subscribe to Texas Football Today wherever you get your podcasts. Nobody covers Texas high school football like Tep and Step, the premium high school football podcast from Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Dig deep into the sport in every corner of the state with high school football insider Matt Stepp and managing editor Greg Tepper, with game previews, unique insights, and bold predictions. Get Tep and Step by becoming a Dave Campbell's Texas Football subscriber at texasfootball.com/subscribe.
We might not be good at many things, but there is one thing that we crushed, and that's naming a stinking podcast. WTF. Yes, it's exactly what you're thinking. Women talking football. Oh, you thought it meant something else? You might be right. Tune in every Thursday at 2 p.m. as me, Ashley Pickle, and everyone's favorite Mal pal, Mallory Hartley, bring you in-depth analysis of every region of the Lone Star State, talk ball with reporters across Texas, get the real scoop from coaches' wives, and all the other nonsense that comes along with the two of us being allowed to talk into a microphone. Join the party Thursdays at 2 o'clock on the Dave Campbell's Texas Football YouTube page.
Well, one of our spotlighted games, Shadow Creek versus Manville, and it was a very welcoming homecoming, I should say, for one of the coaches during this game. And Aaron Hartigan was able to sit down and talk with the coach about this very emotional and very heartwarming homecoming. All right, we apologize for that. We'll try and get back to that. But again, that's one of the games, our spotlighted game, Shadow Creek versus Manville. And again, we got some really exciting games, but it looks like early on, Shadow Creek with the advantage in that game over Manville here in week number 1.
Yeah, I mean, look, we mentioned this before, right? These are two programs that at the beginning of the year, the fact that they're able to kind of play against each other, there's history, there's brief history here, but if you're a player for these teams, you're familiar with each other because, like I mentioned, Shadow Creek pulls from the middle school that used to go to Manville. So a lot of these players used to cheer for Manville growing up. Kirk Martin, they probably remember Kirk Martin as the head coach at Manville. As you're seeing here live, as Shadow Creek's driving up 17-9 right now. They've had Manville's number the past couple years since they opened. Of course, they have the state championship over Manville as well, I believe in 2019 when they beat Denton Ryan. Yes, it was Dan Ryan. And yeah, so I mean, Manville, you'll hear more about this if we get this feature going. You'll hear more about Kirk Martin trying to establish this, the kind of the re-dominance, I guess you could say, of Manville. Because growing up in the Alvin area, that was the team, right? The past era, I should say, when Kirk Martin was there the last time, Manville ran the show, and they were right below North Shore in terms of being that premier program in the Houston area. So as you're seeing here, we're going to keep it here for a little bit as Shadow Creek is on the doorstep again, looking to go take a commanding lead.
All right, so I think we got Chase Snyder with us here, but again, that's a very big homecoming for Kirk Martin, like we've been talking about, coming back to Manville.
I just toiled about it for about 2 weeks, and finally I just walked in the living room. I said, Karen, what are we doing? I said, let's go home. Let's go. She says, thank God. I was wondering where you were going to come to that decision,
Getting to return to the house that they essentially helped build. Walk me through just this off season and that decision for you.
It was nuts, I loved Colleyville, and it was really hard to leave. Specifically, Luke Ulrich, he's going to be the quarterback there, and I'd groomed him, to be the guy, and he had kind of waited his turn and that kind of stuff. And so I flip-flopped on it a couple times before I finally decided, what am I doing? I got to go home, It's been everything I thought it was, and just to get to really try to crank up the Hoka-Hey spirit again and that kind of stuff, it's been special,
What? Explain for those that aren't familiar.
Okay.
The story behind Hoka-Hey, how important that was in building Manville into what it was.
So I coached at Permian and the whole mojo thing, and I wanted something catchy like that whenever I opened up Manville. And so my brother-in-law had a theme, every year, and Hoka-Hey was theirs one year, and he's a coach in Apopka High School in Florida.
Okay.
And so I dug into that, and I figured out what all it was, and it's Crazy Horse defeated Custer at Custer's Last Stand, the Sioux Lakota Indians, and so that was their battle cry. And if you look in the Sioux Lakota language, it means this is a great day to die. They were ready to die to keep them getting driven off their land. They were ready to die to preserve their way of life. And so obviously I'm not advocating that kids die, but I want them to die to their selfish desires, and I want them to play for their teammates, play for their coaches, play for their school, play for their family, play for this community. I want them to play unselfish. And so if you ask our kids what it means, they'll tell you it means play unselfish. And so we've got talent, so if we can get 22 guys playing unselfishly, we can have something special. So to me, that's what Hoka-Hey is. And so that comes with community service, projects, and that comes with really pouring into your fellow man and putting others in front of yourself and that kind of stuff. And so to me, that's a life lesson too. We should live unselfishly.
There's something to be said about releasing self-will, ego, control, and trusting. Leaning on the people around you, because ultimately it's the people around you that help create that success, right? And that's why you're the way you organize your staffs, the way you coach these young men. I mean, it's you are very much about the human element, and I love that.
So that's really what really wins, in my opinion, is culture. And so, I tell every coach that I hire, hey, look, I'm going to do my best to coach you up on what we need, but I can't coach you up on how to love kids. You either love kids or you don't. And so we have to be in that business. We have to be in the business of loving them, building them up. You got to coach them. You got to critique them. But it's not tearing them down. It's not belittling them and
coming from a place of love from you, right?
That's right. And so, heck, discipline's the greatest form of love. So that's what I'm trying to grow is just that love for kids. Love for our program. I want all our coaches to love it like I love it. It's my baby.
Do you want to reignite that? I get a sense that you want to honestly go in there and kind of symbolically reignite the fire, right?
Yep, absolutely.
How do you do? I mean,
well,
because it's how has it changed since you were last there?
We've Shadow Creek had opened up, when I was there, and that pulled from us a little bit. And
2 new schools have opened in the ISD since you left.
Yeah, and so now there's Iowa Colony and that kind of stuff. So that's the new shiny thing in our district and our area and that kind of stuff. And I told our coach, I want to be that new shiny thing. I'm okay. I'm new. It's been 5 years. I didn't coach any of these kids. None of them know me or who I am or anything. A lot of their brothers, a lot of their uncles and different folks like that. Over 12 years that I was there, I got to coach a lot of them, and so it is. I am trying to reignite this thing and really pull us all together and start really being that Hoka-Hey family that I left, and I think we're getting there. I really do.
It's almost like encouraging them to celebrate other success in a way, right?
Amen.
And that's what you're trying to do.
I started a new thing this year. We have the number 0, and I've never had the number 0 before. But we have the number 0. When I got back, that's part of the deal now. And so I took that number, and everybody that's the coveted one, right? And you usually give that to a pretty darn good player, and that's okay. But what I did was I had the whole team vote and told them, I want you guys, and they know what they're voting on. Tell me who the greatest leader in our program is. And it was overwhelming. One kid got like 58 votes, and the closest next one was 8. And then the day that we're picking numbers, I pulled that number out, and I said, okay, this one, y'all voted. This one belongs to Fred Kalu. He's the greatest leader on our team. He leads our FCA. He has 0 offers. He deserves offers. He's a heck of a player. He'll play linebacker and also play some H-back for me, but he didn't have quite the measurables that others have. But he pours into his teammates. He leads our FCA. He's a leader. He's awesome human, and that is one of the new things that we've done. I also have hired a gal that was with me before, Dinah Jones. In the college world, you'd call it a DFO, so she's doing all those things behind the scenes that really nobody knows about. She's pushing out, those kids, she videos us every day, and she's throwing stuff out there on Twitter, and she's in charge of, my contact sheet of all the players, and she's got, embedded links of their highlight videos and their transcripts, and we're blasting the universe with that. And so I've hired a strength coach that coached with me at Syracuse. He was our strength coach at Syracuse. He's got 24 years of college strength coach experience, and he's going to coach all of our sports. And so, he's the greatest strength coach in high school right now. It ain't even close, because he was the head strength coach at Indiana. This guy is legit.
And you know what's cool to think about is the fact that had you not made that jump to the college ranks, to Syracuse, you would know him, and you wouldn't be able to bring him aboard.
How valuable a DFO is, and director of football operations, and that the stuff that Dinah Jones does for us. So yeah, that
everything has a purpose,
Amen.
right?
Everything happens for a reason. There's no doubt.
And so I love and appreciate that when I reached out to you and was like, you just have a fascinating story, and I love when others get to kind of share their testimony, their journey. Yeah. And you were so quick to divert program, community, and I love that. You were all about Manville and the program and the Hoka-Hey, but what was it about? What drew you back? Ultimately?
Honestly, this is where I belong. I'm a high school guy, and it really is about the relationship piece with me, and so that's missing a little bit in the college ranks, and it's tough to build any kind of relationship with kids because it is such a business, and you are trying to recruit guys to replace the ones that you have in your room, right now, and there's the portal out there, so you don't know how long you're going to have these, and there's so many, behind the scenes work at that. I just want to love the guys I got, Can we just pour into them and see how this thing turns out, and then when these graduate, another one's going to, group's going to come, and so I belong in high school. It's special, and Texas, in general. There's no other place like it, and I recruit all over the country. I had Texas I had Orlando area, and I had quarterbacks nationally. So I traveled all over the country. Heck, I've been to Plymouth Rock. I mean, how about that?
So there you go. There's, you went away, you saw the world.
There were some cool things that I did, but I went all over the world and saw, all these different programs and everything, and I'm trying to, see how they do things in other places, and nobody does it like Texas. I mean, the athletic period, the resources we pour into it, the amount of coaches you have, and your coaches are also teachers that are in the building with the kids, and they're teaching them, and they're in the lunchroom with them, and they're, handling discipline and counseling and all the other stuff that go with, Texas high school is just, that's why it's different, so it's the best, no doubt.
Well, again, a really great feature there, and that's a very exciting game so far. Chase Snyder on the call as he gives us his thoughts on what has been a very exciting game so far.
Colony, Texas, where it is 14-9, Shadow Creek over Manville. Kirk Martin takes over for Manville for the second time in his career, and this time around he's got himself a quarterback controversy. Jackson Hamilton going up against Roman Seymour, and so far Hamilton probably has the upper hand. He's led the lone Maverick touchdown drive of the game thanks to a 10-yard Jonathan Haynes touchdown run. But the Maverick defense, returning 8 starters, is leading this squad, according to Kirk Martin, but they have to keep Ja'Cory Watson in check. The Sharks quarterback has been in charge of a 55-yard run, setting up a 2-yard touchdown run for himself. Then he has himself a 24-yard touchdown pass, completing it to Tyleek Burton on 3rd down and 5. Second half coming your way around 8:45 p.m. Tune in on TexanLive.com.
Spotlighted games. We got the highlights rolling in. We'll get through them on the other side of the break. You're watching Dave Campbell's Texas Football Tonight.
There's only one state in the nation with 13 Division I FBS programs, and there's only one podcast that talks about every single one of them. Introducing the Dave Campbell's Republic of Football podcast, the most complete coverage of the Lone Star State. Join host Ishmael Johnson, Carter Yates, and Mallory Hartley live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. for the biggest news and weekly previews on all Texas FBS programs. Can't catch every college football game on Saturdays? We've got you covered with recap episodes Sunday mornings with senior writer Mike Craven checking in. Subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts, including Spotify and Apple. Strap in with your host Ishmael Johnson, producer Mallory Hartley, senior writer Mike Craven, and college writer Carter Yates for a ride that'll last from now throughout the season.
Need your daily football fix? Look no further than Texas Football Today, the daily live show from the people that bring you Dave Campbell's Texas football. Every weekday at noon, Greg Tepper and Ashley Pickle bring you the latest news, deep dive analysis, insightful interviews with big name guests, and more. And if you ever miss an episode, you can subscribe to the Texas Football Today podcast to keep up with all the fun. Don't miss Texas Football Today every weekday at noon at TexasFootball.com, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and subscribe to Texas Football Today wherever you get your podcasts. Nobody covers Texas high school football like Tep and Step, the premium high school football podcast from Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Dig deep into the sport in every corner of the state with high school football insider Matt Stepp and managing editor Greg Tepper, with game previews, unique insights, and bold predictions. Get Tep and Step by becoming a Dave Campbell's Texas Football subscriber at TexasFootball.com/subscribe.
We might not be good at many things, but there is one thing that we crushed, and that's naming a stinking podcast. WTF. Yes, it's exactly what you're thinking. Women talking football. Oh, you thought it meant something else? You might be right. Tune in every Thursday at 2 p.m. as me, Ashley Pickle, and everyone's favorite Mal pal, Mallory Hartley, bring you in-depth analysis of every region of the Lone Star State, talk ball with reporters across Texas, get the real scoop from coaches' wives, and all the other nonsense that comes along with the two of us being allowed to talk into a microphone. Join the party Thursdays at 2 o'clock on the Dave Campbell's Texas Football YouTube page.
All right, listen, one of the new schools we got this year is Aledo, and let's go over to Bearcat Stadium. They're taking on Parish Episcopal. If you want to check this out, please subscribe to TexasFootball.com. First play from scrimmage, Racine Gilroy for Aledo races down the sidelines almost untouched. 75-yard swing pass for the touchdown, puts the Bearcats up 7-0 in the first quarter. Let's go, right now tied at 7, I should say, in the first quarter. Racine Gilroy again, this time on the handoff, 33 yards, one cut. Is he making another one? No, he just needs to stiff arm him. Race down the sidelines, 15-7. They went for 2 on that one. Well, look at that. Aledo as well. They got a pick 6 right there as we fade into the scores here. Devon Keys will return that 28 yards for the touchdown. That would be a pick 6 to put them up 22-7, as you're seeing right now. The rest of the scores we got going on, the one I do want to update you guys on, I think we mentioned it earlier. Lake Belton and Leander Rouse are currently paused right now. I believe a transformer blew, I believe I saw on Twitter.
Well, yeah, we heard. No power in the stadium?
Back in my, no, I'm kidding.
That's
back
crazy.
in my day, you needed power to run. No, I'm kidding. But regardless, that's why that score hasn't changed that much from the last time we talked about it. If we remember, we mentioned them going up 34-10. But Nick, any other scores? Chapel Hill and Gilman, we mentioned that one being the high-scoring one. Any other scores standing out to you?
Oh, man. Shadow Creek and Manville. That's been a good one. Of course, we talked about there. Kirk Martin, his return, and we take a look at some of those highlights, or maybe looking live there late in the third. Shadow Creek starting to maybe run away. Yeah, we're going to cut right in there as we got the broadcast right there as we'll go right into it. Gavin Moritz on the call.
Chase Snyder.
Chase Snyder.
First and 10 from the 24. Minute 57 left. Watson rolls, looks, stops, throws. High, but caught. Caught again by Chris Stewart. Holding on to the football as he was hit by Brian Robinson. Gain of 15 yards, first and goal from the 9. First and goal from the 9-yard line. Watson hands it off to Burton, and Burton is in for his second touchdown of the night. Touchdown, Shadow Creek. Tyler Burton with a rushing touchdown to complement his receiving touchdown. And it's 26-9 Shadow Creek with the extra point to come. And we have a timeout on the field. 26-9. Be back in just a moment. You're watching Dave Campbell's Texan Live.
America, come along with our adventure seekers, the Sanchez family, and discover summer with the Ford F-150. See how available features like Pro Trailer Back.
All right, so you saw right there was a touchdown. I believe that was Burton with the touchdown run right there for Shadow Creek as they grow their lead.
Yeah, Tylik Burton, I should say, one of their key players are going to be playing. That's going to be making a big impact for Shadow Creek this year.
All right, so you see Shadow Creek with the lead. Let's get into some more highlights. We got Vider versus Silsbee coming at you right here as we'll go into the first quarter. We got a quick pass. Draylon Miller on the catch from Michael Mosher. 60 yards on the catch and run for Miller to give Silsbee the 7-0 lead there in the first quarter as we jump ahead 15-0 Silsbee with the lead. Vider trying to get on the board. It's Ricky Gall on the handoff, and he powers through the offensive line as he gets Vider on the board to make it 15-7. And then we got another score, this time from Silsbee again. Still in that first quarter. Again, hey, we've been seeing some high-scoring offenses in the first half as Silsbee threatening again. It's a handoff to Trey Trey Kibbles as he takes it into the end zone, and Silsbee extends their lead. That had a 22-7 lead there in the first quarter for Silsbee over Vidor.
Yeah, I mean, Draylon Miller is one of the most exciting players in the state. Let's put it that way. He's going to be all over the field. I believe last year he also did something similar to Vidor. His highlight package is going to be insane when you look back on his high school career. But Draylon Miller is a little bit of a summary of what our guy Greg Powers does, right? He goes all over the state, rates everybody, checks out everybody. We have his top 10 quarterbacks. We couldn't get it early. We have it now, and we have a segment on his top 10 quarterbacks for the class of 2024. So right now we're going to go to Greg Powers and his top 10 quarterbacks.
Thanks, y'all. I'm happy to be on the marquee Texas High School football show, Texas Football Tonight. And tonight we're going to be talking about the top 10 quarterbacks in the state. And at number 1, you're going to see DJ Lagway, Derek DJ Lagway, the Willis powerhouse who's committed to the University of Florida. Lagway is best described as a dual threat, and I've tried to really think of a great player comparison for DJ Lagway, and nothing really jumps to my mind. He's some sort of hybrid between Caleb Williams and maybe possibly a Jalen Milroe at Alabama, a guy who looks like a tank in his jersey. He will run over you. He has the speed to run around you, but his arm talent is super impressive. The Florida Gators got a steal, a marquee name in the Lone Star State when you're talking about Derek DJ Lagway. At number 2 right here, you have Michael Hawkins Jr. Michael Hawkins Jr. is committed to Oklahoma. His father, Mike Hawkins, also played at Oklahoma. He's a guy who I describe as silky smooth. He brings a lot of everything to the table. He doesn't panic in the pocket when he's underneath pressure. He can run well enough to be a dual threat, and he's extremely accurate when he passes the football. Looking down the list here, Texas Tech got a really good player in William Hammond from Hutto, a guy who can not only pass the ball efficiently, he's completed over 60% of his passes last season. He's a guy who can pull it down and run. He rushed for over 700 yards. And they were able to take that commitment from William Hammond and kind of build a recruiting class around him at Tech. Elite 11 finalist, a guy who really moves the needle as far as Texas Tech is concerned. Especially Texas Tech fans are going to be fired up to see him in a Red Raiders uniform. TCU got a hometown hero in Hoss Haney at Aledo. Haney led the Bearcats to a state championship last season. They're the odds-on favorite to win the state title again. You can see his stats here. 2,248 passing yards, 1,421 rushing yards, 39 total touchdowns. Hoss is a guy who I think that you can have high expectations of whenever you're looking at the TCU roster moving forward, because he's a guy who can, do a lot of similar things that Max Duggan did. He's going to do a lot of similar things that Chandler Morris is going to do this year. Just a guy that you have to account for running or throwing the football on every play. Moving down the list, I'm going to look at Trey Owens a little bit closer, because Trey Owens is a Texas commitment who's a little bit under the radar, and I love this pickup for Texas in this class because Owens is an extremely efficient passer who's super competitive. 67% completion percentage last season, and the Longhorns are going to put him in a quarterback room that's also going to have last year's #1 quarterback Arch Manning. And Owens isn't the type to shy away from competition. He's a guy who steps up and leads his team to victory, and he has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder because he's not as highly rated as some of these other guys, but his skill set is right there with them. And I like that. I like that competition aspect in the QB room. And just a little bit more down the list here, if you're looking for a sleeper, if you want a sleeper in the Lone Star State, keep your eyes on number 9, Arrington Maiden. The Memphis commit led College Station to a state championship appearance last season. He has as big of arm as anybody else on this list, and he's extremely efficient. Another guy that really embraces the competition aspect of the quarterback position, and he's really entering his senior season riding a high. He's going to be a guy to definitely watch as College Station tries to make its march back to AT&T Stadium. Back to you guys.
I mean, plenty of quarterbacks here in the state. I mean, you look at the class of 2024. I mean, in my opinion, DJ Lagway, of course, is the guy, right? He's the type of guy who I saw him last year, 7-on-7. Honestly, didn't see the hype at the time, but then I realized he's more of an in-game quarterback, right? He's not necessarily the guy that's going to stand there and without contact, without the ability to run. it doesn't really show what he is, right? He is a physical, versatile player who has the upside to develop his a little bit more of a crispness, I should say, in the throwing game. Watch him when the tape comes on, and he turns into a different player. The guy I want to hint on, though, is Will Hammond. I saw him last year. I went to go see Hutto take on San Marcos, and I think he was the guy that stood out to me in terms of being a guy who was like an inch off of certain throws, but like the windows were there, and the throws and the ability to make the throws were like what separated that type of talent from being maybe from kind of the rest of the high school class, right? I saw him and I was like, he was only like an inch or two off of some of these really impressive throws. I think Will Compton's system there at Hutto does him justice. It's a very, very basic, kind of like if you remember West Virginia under Rich Rodriguez, very basic spread option kind of system. He can run the ball a lot, but he is able to throw the ball. I think him and Zach Kitley's system, if he sticks with his tech commitment, it's going to be something really, really special. Marcos Davila at Midland Legacy, somebody I'm going to be very interested in watching. I haven't seen him personally, in person, I should say. But I'm interested in seeing what, because I'm very fascinated with the staff that Purdue put together. I believe Graham Harrell's the offensive coordinator there, former, UNT offensive coordinator. I'm curious to see what exactly the talent marriage with that coaching staff is going to be with Marcos Davila. But the guy that I'm like very, very fascinated, and the guy that I think has the most upside is going to be Deuce Adams at Austin Vandergrift. He's somebody who played at New Braunfels Canyon a year ago. Coach Travis Bush was there. He knew offense. He was a former UTSA offensive coordinator, did a stint in the NFL as a Buffalo Bills assistant. He's now at UTRGV, and now Deuce Adams is now at Austin Vandergrift. So the level is up a little bit, right? Austin Vandergrift was a state runner-up in 6A Division II last year, and now they kind of, it's a little bit of a different system, right? Travis Bush is a little bit more of a spread-out coach, let his quarterback kind of hang free. I'm curious to see what he's like in that, not only stepping up a level, in my opinion, and playing in the more Central Texas, Cedar Park, Leander area, with now state championship aspirations. I'm curious to see. I think his ceiling out of all these quarterbacks could be the highest in terms of production, because he was already putting up numbers for a pretty okay New Braunfels Canyon program. But now, now the competition level goes up, and I'm very fascinated to see him. I'll make my way down to Austin and go check him out.
Well, it's really cool to get that precise breakdown. Of course, no one produces better talent than the state of Texas when it comes to football. Well, we'll get into it. We got about a half hour left, and this is what they call in the NFL the witching hour. We're going to get down to the nitty gritty on the other side of the break. We'll bring you more highlights from our spotlight games coming up on the other side of the break as you're watching Dave Campbell's Texas Football Tonight.
There's only one state in the nation with 13 Division I FBS programs, and there's only one podcast that talks about every single one of them. Introducing the Dave Campbell's Republic of Football podcast, the most complete coverage of the Lone Star State. Join host Ishmael Johnson, Carter Yates, and Mallory Hartley live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. for the biggest news and weekly previews on all Texas FBS programs. Can't catch every college football game on Saturdays? We've got you covered with recap episodes Sunday mornings with senior writer Mike Craven checking in. Subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts, including Spotify and Apple. Strap in with your host Ishmael Johnson, producer Mallory Hartley, senior writer Mike Craven, and college writer Carter Yates for a ride that'll last from now throughout the season.
Need your daily football fix? Look no further than Texas Football Today, the daily live show from the people that bring you Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Every weekday at noon, Greg Tepper and Ashley Pickle bring you the latest news, deep dive analysis, insightful interviews with big-name guests, and more. And if you ever miss an episode, you can subscribe to the Texas Football Today podcast to keep up with all the fun. Don't miss Texas Football Today every weekday at noon at texasfootball.com, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and subscribe to Texas Football Today wherever you get your podcasts. Nobody covers Texas high school football like Tep and Step, the premium high school football podcast from Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Dig deep into the sport in every corner of the state with high school football insider Matt Stepp and managing editor Greg Tepper, with game previews, unique insights, and bold predictions. Get Tep and Step by becoming a Dave Campbell's Texas Football subscriber at texasfootball.com/subscribe.
We might not be good at many things, but there is one thing that we crushed, and that's naming a stinking podcast. WTF. Yes, it's exactly what you're thinking. Women talking football. Oh, you thought it meant something else? You might be right. Tune in every Thursday at 2 p.m. as me, Ashley Pickle, and everyone's favorite Mal pal, Mallory Hartley, bring you in-depth analysis of every region of the Lone Star State, talk ball with reporters across Texas, get the real scoop from coaches' wives, and all the other nonsense that comes along with the two of us being allowed to talk into a microphone. Join the party Thursdays at 2 o'clock on the Dave Campbell's Texas Football YouTube page.
All right, welcome back into Dave Campbell's Texas Football Tonight. Quad box time. Here we go. Here we go. We got some good stuff coming up at you here. Looks like Lake Travis getting the win over Arlington Martin, 13-6 the final. Instant reaction-ish on that final.
I mean, Lake Travis avenges what was a loss last year. Yeah. I believe I was checking Twitter just before this. 43 seconds left in the game is when Lake Travis scored to go up 13-7, or 13-6, I should say. And I believe that was Seth Gilbraith on the reception from Leon Caden, the quarterback. So, yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, this low-scoring game, which is what I'm not used to seeing from Lake Travis. Yeah. Used to, obviously, under Hank Carter, as we're seeing Hank Carter kind of getting a post-game interview there. They kind of, like I said, they avenged the loss to Arlington Martin from last year. Lake Travis had a down year for them, 7-5 a year ago, not to their standards. Trying to get back into that. Of course, for Arlington Martin, that was a little tough game for Chad Rives, who is of course, taking over for longtime head coach Bob Wager there. His first game, of course, don't want to start with a loss, but it's kind of a new era, right? Arlington Martin's kind of an unfamiliar territory. They're used to Bob Wager being on the sidelines, but a big win for Lake Travis nonetheless. That was one of those Austin versus DFW matchups that I'm always in favor of seeing.
Yeah, we got Anna and Decatur. That is a Anna lead right now for the Coyotes.
Yep.
As I was corrected earlier, 21-17.
Look, if I don't correct you, somebody's going to correct you.
As it looks like, I believe that's Decatur with the ball. And we'll get right into the action right there from Anna, Texas.
Full ride receivers again. Williams. Heaves one deep down the left side, but over the head. It would have been a heck of a play trying to get that one. For Sean Steens, incomplete. So now third down and five with 37 seconds left to play. The Coyotes lead this one by four, trying to grow their lead. This is going to make for an exciting fourth quarter, regardless if the Coyotes can score. They're going to have a five wide receiver set the Coyotes 35. Williams steps back, decides to run himself, but he's met by the defense of the Eagles. And he'll be stopped short of the line to gain just before the 15-yard line. That'll set up a fourth down scenario. Now what are you going to do if you're Seth Parr? Do you go for it here in enemy territory? Well, they've got time to think about it. 8 seconds and counting off the game clock right now. Likely let this one run out, going to the fourth quarter.
All right, so you see, looks like we're going to get a timeout called here, but this is a really close game. As let's get into some highlights. Let's get into some highlights here real quick as we got a pause there from Decatur and Anna. But the Bridgeland Bears taking on the Cy-Fair Bobcats. Let's jump into the first quarter. Here's junior quarterback Jet Lewis. A big pass, able to connect with the senior Mason Simmons. An acrobatic catch right there inside the 10. And a couple of plays later, it's going to be, here we go, one-handed grab by Oscar Nanana. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Apologies, but that's 7-0 Bridgeland. Then we jump ahead a couple series later. You see the score 14-9 in favor of Bridgeland, and then a big catch right there by Owen Carter. That's a long touchdown catch and run. At halftime, it was a 23-21 score, but at the moment, that's a 30-21 lead.
Jumping over to Langham Creek and Top Memorial. as you see a flea flicker puts Tomball Memorial up 7-0 in the first quarter. I mean, let's start with some trickeration, in my opinion, to start the year. I'm all down for that. Let's stick with first quarter. They got a field goal here, 22 yards. Tomball Memorial about to take a commanding 10-0 lead. You can't start the season if you're any better if you're Tomball Memorial. Great kick right there. I mean, come on, 22 yards, easy money. And you know what? Let's stick with Tomball Memorial here. They're about to go up 17-0 in the second quarter. Quarterback Aiden Martin right now lining up behind center, takes the snap, and he's going to go deep, 35 yards to Ashton Ansley, a dot, 20-7 right now on Langham Creek. And I mean, come on, we're just constantly cutting in and out of games. We're constantly updating you on what's happening around the state. It's not slowing down, neither are we. Unfortunately, we're about to because we have time. We have a time constraint. But this is just a little bit of a taste of what we're going to be doing every Friday night for the rest of the season.
You see Shadow Creek right there. They're expanding their lead. Chapel Hill and Gilmer, that one coming down. That's a pretty good game. Chapel Hill with the lead. And we got Anna right here. Is a grab to the end zone. Was that caught? I think it was. That's a touchdown.
I see celebrating going on.
Yeah, there we go. Let's cut right into it. Anna with the touchdown.
Whew. That looks like trying to find a number.
But the Coyotes able to expand their lead as they get the touchdown grab, an acrobatic grab there in the end zone as they're teeing up for the extra point. Oh, there we go.
Chapel Hill just scored.
All right.
Oh, my goodness.
This is the beauty of the quad box. We got one score over in Anna, and then the other side, we got Chapel Hill with another touchdown.
Just the points keep rolling in. I mean, it's pretty impressive. I don't know. This is crazy. We're kind of figuring things out. Again, as we're reacting, it's real time, right?
Yeah.
We're watching along with you. If you're watching the game, we're like, oh, my God, they just scored. If you just reacted to that. Yeah. Let's jump into Atascocita and Dickinson. Gavin Moritz was on the call for this one. And as we're seeing now, it looks like Dickinson is about to kick off after Atascocita with a 39-21 lead right now in the fourth quarter. Atascocita kind of out of a commanding lead here. And let's go to Gavin Moritz right now, who is on the call for this one.
The state of Texas, and a lot of people are going to know about him here in the near future.
Short kick is up and away. It's going to be fielded by Atascocita near the 37 or so. And with a minute 50 left, the Eagles now free to try to run out the clock. A first down will probably do it and give Atascocita a 1-0 record here to start 2023.
Yeah, I think you're going to see about 3 taking knees maybe. Or I don't know if they bring in their second teamers. They may try to let them run a little of their offense as well. But it should be very conservative, I would imagine. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting game here in a couple of weeks when they are playing East St. Louis, Illinois High School in a non-district ball game. You and I called the game last year when they were playing Henderson High School out of Nevada. And, when you're good, nobody wants to play you. So sometimes you have to go out and schedule these out-of-state teams just to find a ball game.
Atascocita finding an out-of-state opponent for their last non-district game again here for the second year in a row, playing Liberty High School in Nevada last year. They have East St. Louis this year. And here's a good run up across the 40-yard line to about the 41 as we're down to a minute 40.
Usually across the nation, Texas, Florida, Georgia, and California are considered the 4 hotbeds of high school football as far as athletes. But there's a little recruiting base there in St. Louis. They pump out a lot of Division I football players. They don't ever stay and go to Missouri. It seems like got guys from St. Louis high schools that are going all over the country. University of Texas has got 2 or 3 of them on their roster.
So here's a keeper for the reserve quarterback, the sophomore Carday Mack. And he's back to the 41-yard line as we tick down to about a minute 10.
Keeper up the right side.
Well, Gavin, this has been an absolute great start to the 2023 season.
No game.
Like I said at the beginning of this broadcast, I am tickled to death that football season is finally here. I wish the weather would cool down a little bit with it. But tomorrow starts the college football season. I think Navy and Notre Dame are playing.
Off the races again with 45.
All right. I don't know. It looked like there was a big play happening right there.
Looked like there was a big play happening there. So that's,
I don't know. Hey, more highlights. We got some more highlights. I believe this one we got Canyon Lake versus Wimberley. As we have this one coming up. It was 37-0 Wimberley in the third. And here we go. There's a big catch right there as that's going to be Winston Birchill in the middle of the field with the catch and run for the touchdown as that was a nice play Cody Stover with the rollout, able to connect with Bert Seal on that one. Then we got a handoff to Chase Carson as he takes it to the house. Another touchdown. Wembley continuing to pile on to Canyon Lake. That time Carson with the touchdown run in the third quarter as, again, Wembley just adding on 51-0 as this is going to be a bad snap coming up here for Canyon Lake. Hey, first week of the season, you're going to have some miscues. Canyon Lake, only can go up from here as that's a safety there for Wembley to add on to their lead. And then we got another touchdown here for Colton Schmidt. With a touchdown there late in the contest as we go back to what is becoming my favorite feature, the quad box. The quad box. As, we got Chapel Hill. They put up 50 on Gilmer. Is that one still 4.5 minutes to go in the third?
That's almost an inverse of last year's score, I believe. I believe it was 51-37 Gilmer over Chapel Hill last year.
So as we continue to look at some of these spotlighted games, anything really standing out at you so far?
I mean, obviously Chapel Hill, that's going to be a team that I feel like I was early on last year because of how they did in 2021, I should say, with those two freshmen kind of making an impact as we dive into this game a little bit here. I mean, this was the game that I was really hoping to see from them because this is, like I mentioned, I'm going to keep mentioning it. This is their window, right? Yep. They're upperclassmen. They are now highly touted recruits. A lot of these guys are. And so I'm very happy to see this. But also, guys like Davion Ross, right, at linebacker, over 160 tackles last year, 7 sacks. He has offers from Arkansas State, Central Arkansas, Sam Houston. He's going to get more as the season goes along. He's somebody who is also going to be counted on a lot this year, and they get tested early, right? Yep. And so this is a huge test for them. If they can hold on, it's still the third quarter, right? This is only an 11-point game, right? Gilmer's very capable in their own right. Guys like Will Henderson and I mentioned Caden Tennyson as well. Very capable of making this a game, closing the gap, I should say.
They just got into Chapel Hill territory. So yeah.
No, exactly. And so this is the game that I had kind of penciled in, this one, and I believe it was Manville Shadow Creek as well. Yep. But I'm very impressed with what I'm seeing from Chapel Hill. Now, if you're Coach Reardon, if you're any coach, you probably look at that and say, all right, time to make some stops, right? You love the 50 points. You love the ability to be able to put points up, but now can you stop Gilmer from closing the deficit? And then the next week, can you stop somebody from scoring 39, right? That's kind of the incremental, nonstop coaching philosophy that I'm assuming is going through Coach Reardon's head right now.
And again, we're able to chat with Brett Sweeney, who's on the call for that game tonight. Oh, here we go, ball on the ground.
Near turnover. Luckily, Gilmer jumps back on that one.
But anyway, I mean, that was a very high-scoring first half, and it's kind of continued on the same track. And here we go. We're going back to Anna and Decatur. Here's a big run for Decatur, moving inside the 20, and we got a couple of flags there at the very end of that run. As, again, that's still a sizable gap in the fourth quarter, but Decatur on the move, and they might be getting some more yardage. A couple of flags there at the very end of that play.
Looks like that was the man, Nate Palmer, there. Of course, he's another guy you got to keep your eye on if you're a fan of this sport. Over 2,200 yards rushing last year, 33 touchdowns. He's a DCTF 3-star as well, according to our guy, Greg Powers. Guys like Landon Feltz, Wyatt Vincent over there for Decatur. Looks like it's coming back, unfortunately. But a tough start for them, right? I mentioned Anna being kind of the team that needed to kind of prove they can do it without some big-time players. Yep. Decatur, probably not the start you wanted to see, but again, these are two teams that were in the state picture last year, and I think, I don't know, in my opinion, game's not over, obviously. Decatur, I'm assuming, is going to make another run at this, but if you're both teams, I feel like it's a nice test equally for both sides.
And you see there in the top corner, Atascocita with the win over Dickinson. That's a 45-21 final, as that was a 37-0 win last year for Atascocita. So Dickinson putting some points up on the board, but Atascocita again able to pull away in this contest.
Yeah, Dickinson, I mean, you mentioned it, 37-0 last year. Obviously not going to be happy with a loss, right? I don't think John Snelson is a big fan of moral victories here, but Atascocita has been kind of that team knocking on the doorstep of a state championship appearance, and for you to erase a 37-point deficit, right, in the span of 1 year to a team that's going to be playing well past Thanksgiving, well into the fall, right? Guys like Braylon Conley, Zion Brown, Torrey Blaylock for Atascocita, playmakers everywhere, right? it's a process, right? Like you mentioned, first game of the season, we'll see how things go. But this was last year, this was their only real letdown for Dickinson. And they had a pretty good season, 8-4 otherwise. And now they shake that off, right? Move on with your season and just kind of use what you can to build forward.
Shadow Creek, 34-9 in control over Manville. And again, we see Gilmer. Looks like they had to hunt the ball, or actually, yeah. As looks like Chapel Hill's back on it, but we go back over to Shadow Creek and Manville just over 5 minutes ago in the fourth, and again Shadow Creek in control late in this contest.
Yeah, I would love to see the post-game handshake between Kirk Martin and Brad Butler, because it's the first time they're playing against each other, right? It's like they coached with each other for over 10 years probably, or exactly 10 years maybe, and now it's the first time they're playing against each other. Obviously, I mentioned Brad Butler and Shadow Creek kind of establishing themselves as the top program in that Alvin area. But I mean, if you're a Manville fan, you're glad to have Kirk Martin back. You know it's going to be a process to build the program back up to what it was before he left for Syracuse.
And again, Shadow Creek, very impressive 11-1 season a year ago, where they averaged close to 42 points a game. And that defense, too, was impressive. They held opponents to under 10 points in 6 games last year. Yeah. So, again, you talk about they've kind of established themselves as the team to beat. Brad Butler into his 6th year there. As we take a look, again, around, looks like Decatur moving past midfield again, trying to close the gap against Anna in that contest. And then we have Chapel Hill and Gilmer, as looks like Chapel Hill moving back into Gilmer territory, looking for another score with 2:14 to go in the third of that game. But yeah, we're getting toward the end of a lot of these spotlight games. A couple have already gone final. We'll take another break on the other side. We'll keep you updated as we're humming along toward the end of this opening week of the 2023 high school football season. You're watching it, all the action right here on Texas Football Tonight.
There's only one state in the nation with 13 Division I FBS programs, and there's only one podcast that talks about every single one of them. Introducing the Dave Campbell's Republic of Football podcast, the most complete coverage of the Lone Star State. Join host Ishmael Johnson, Carter Yates, and Mallory Hartley live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. for the biggest news and weekly previews on all Texas FBS programs. Can't catch every college football game on Saturdays? We've got you covered with recap episodes Sunday mornings with senior writer Mike Craven checking in. Subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts, including Spotify and Apple. Strap in with your host Ishmael Johnson, producer Mallory Hartley, senior writer Mike Craven, and college writer Carter Yates for a ride that'll last from now throughout the season.
Need your daily football fix? Look no further than Texas Football Today, the daily live show from the people that bring you Dave Campbell's Texas football. Every weekday at noon, Greg Tepper and Ashley Pickle bring you the latest news, deep dive analysis, insightful interviews with big name guests, and more. And if you ever miss an episode, you can subscribe to the Texas Football Today podcast to keep up with all the fun. Don't miss Texas Football Today every weekday at noon at texasfootball.com, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and subscribe to Texas Football Today wherever you get your podcasts. Nobody covers Texas high school football like Tep and Step, the premium high school football podcast from Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Dig deep into the sport in every corner of the state with high school football insider Matt Stepp and managing editor Greg Tepper, with game previews, unique insights, and bold predictions. Get Tep and Step by becoming a Dave Campbell's Texas Football subscriber at texasfootball.com/subscribe.
We might not be good at many things, but there is one thing that we crushed, and that's naming a stinking podcast. WTF. Yes, it's exactly what you're thinking. Women talking football. Oh, you thought it meant something else? You might be right. Tune in every Thursday at 2 p.m. as me, Ashley Pickle, and everyone's favorite Mal pal, Mallory Hartley, bring you in-depth analysis of every region of the Lone Star State, talk ball with reporters across Texas, get the real scoop from coaches' wives, and all the other nonsense that comes along with the two of us being allowed to talk into a microphone. Join the party Thursdays at 2 o'clock on the Dave Campbell's Texas Football YouTube page.
All right, we got more highlights for you coming at you. We got Clear Falls and Pearland. We got the second half highlights. We were tuning in on this a little bit earlier in the evening as you see Pearland with the lead in the third. And we've got a deep shot here, Landon Vessel. That's a 30-yard bomb. What a catch right there inside the 10. An impressive grab as that sets up a very nice opportunity for Clear Falls. And then we got a goal line touchdown. This is just, get behind your lineman and push forward as Clear Falls is able to get into the end zone, and that makes it a very tight game there in the third. And then we have Pearland with the ball, a run over to the near side, able to escape and then just kind of throwing it away there as that's picked up by Clear Falls, as this is picked up and all the way to the 20-yard line. And so Clear Falls taking advantage of the miscue, and then they get back inside the 10, and it's going to be a run for number 13, Andrew Martinez, as that's a 10-yard touchdown run. So Clear Falls getting down early and able to get a couple of quick scores, as we got another highlight here.
All right, let's jump back into Highland Park and Flower Mound Marcus in Flower Mound. We're going to look at Warren Peck here. He's going to escape the pressure and find a wide open receiver. He's going to take it to the end zone. Sorry, this is the first quarter here. First quarter highlights.
We saw, Highland Park jumped out to an early lead.
Right.
Flower Mound would come back with a couple of big drives of their own, but again, not surprised to see Highland Park get off to a quick start there in that first quarter.
Yep.
And then this is a really big run that we saw back in that first quarter. Flower Mound with a big response early on, being down 14-0.
As you see here, Flower Mound Marcus was down 14-0, but decided, you know what, this is not how we need to play. So they came back and set up, I should say. I believe this was Clip Hickey that had the long run to set up his touchdown. And this was eventually be the one that would set up the touchdown here.
Yeah, so they took advantage of that big run, and you see right there the touchdown from earlier in the first quarter made it 14-7, and then we get into the second half.
Here we go to the second half. Warren Peck again evades pressure, somehow still takes a hit, but somehow gets it to his man for a big first down. And Highland Park, he leads 42 to Marcus's 10. And so,
it's a little shocking to have that score.
A little bit shocking. I mean, Highland Park is still, of course, one of the premier programs in the state, of course. But yeah, especially after the way Marcus responded to that 14-0 deficit, right? The fact that Highland Park was able to kind of keep the foot on the gas and kind of extend it into the second half, I mean, a huge statement game from them.
Yeah, so that's Highland Park rolling in the week one action as, again, we take you back to the action throughout some of our spotlight games. There's a big run there, looked like for Manville, as they set up an opportunity inside the 5, and they're going to break in for a touchdown late in the fourth, as looks like Gilmer with the ball now. Under a minute to go in the third, so they're able to get the stop on Chapel Hill as they're trying to make their comeback now.
Looks like Chapel Hill is able to, I mean, again, they're able to kind of hold on to this margin, the margin of the lead that they have right now. 11-point lead. I mentioned how that second half is going to be kind of about making sure that 39 doesn't get any closer, right? Probably not the best defensive performance so far, but now if they can kind of keep it here, Coach Reardon can kind of take this second half defensive performance into next week and say, look, we held them, we gave up 33 in the first half. If they can keep them to 6 or something in that range in the second half, all of a sudden you have something that you can cook with to go into week 2.
And again, you saw there at the bottom, looked like Anna and Decatur, that score staying still from when we last saw. So, we got some of these games coming down maybe to the very end, like we saw in last night, a couple of those big games, as we now jump back to Anna as Decatur with the ball. deep inside the Anna territory, as this is going to be a deep shot. Here we go, wide open man, and that's a catch. Here we go.
I'll take
Here
that.
we go.
I'll take
Fourth
that.
quarter.
Let's go. Let's
Decatur,
get this game back going.
Yeah, Decatur an extra point away from making it just a 4-point game there in the fourth. So that's a big catch right there. As, again, this one is going to go down to the wire. Again, like, you know, at the beginning of the show, we talked about some of the games last night that came down to the very end. Is this probably how this game goes down? It might come down to the very nitty-gritty.
Do want to give a quick shout-out. That was Luke White on the reception, number 17.
There we go.
And that'll be the last name we probably say tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
I believe so. Yeah, it's 10 o'clock. You know, some of these games are still going. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to bring you all the action right here. But if, there you go. Yeah, you want to do another subscribe pitch?
That's my flip sign. No, but yeah, sure. TexasFootball.com. If you're not a subscriber, you should see a big red button that says subscribe now. We're going off air, right? I keep hitting my mic. I'm sorry to the producers in the back. I keep hitting my mic. But TexasFootball.com/subscribe. Go watch any of these games that are still going on. We got a quick out at 10, so we got to go. But these games are still going on. These broadcasters are still putting in an incredible amount of work. So, yeah, that'll do it for us in our first week, man.
Yeah, well, this was an absolute blast. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you had as much fun watching it as we had here in the studio. Big shout out to our producers, our director, and, of course, all those UNT students behind the scenes for getting the magic running. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. For Ish Johnson, I'm Nick Laupia saying so long, enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you next week right here on Dave Campbell's Texas Football Tonight.